He followed all the rules of the sacred manual, but ended up dead like a mere experience stepping stone for greedy heroes. Now, with a second chance 15 years in the past, he decided to send the script to hell. Exiled in the most deadly region of the world, he will rewrite his story, breaking all traditions. Kidnap the strongest princess by mistake? Sell demonic energy for money? Hire human mercenaries? Anything goes. Prepare yourself to follow the revenge of the demon king who decided to play dirty to dominate the world. Our story begins already in the middle of a big shit, and in this moment a being is vomiting a red liquid, and in thought he asks himself when this happened. Because when the brutal reality hits us head on and we cannot comprehend it, the mind collapses, guiding us to a deep state of denial. Facing the massacre scenario in his own hall, he finally faces the truth he ignored. He was blind, completely unaware of his own reality. He observes the group of heroes in front of him, and asks why the black flames, his greatest pride and devastating power, failed miserably to eliminate his enemies. The demon king feels the cold steel crossing his scales that previously were impenetrable. Then he questions, incredulous, how the blade of the god of the sword could wound his heart. The blood flows and the vision blurs, but the pain is smaller than the confusion. In his mind, only one question echoes incessantly: how did this happen? This makes no sense. In the military academy, he was a superior existence, an unreachable genius who graduated with the highest honors among all. He dedicated his life to studying the patterns of the demon king. Nobody researched more deeply that ancient theory, and he followed every rule to the letter. As the classic script commanded, he raised shadowy towers and kidnapped defenseless princesses, creating the perfect scenario to challenge the adventurers. For a demon king, the anguish of the heroes is the supreme feast. Killing them early would be a waste. It was necessary to savor their hatred slowly. His help was cultivating them like cattle, make them grow to, in the end, devour them. After all, the stronger the hero, the more flavorful his meat is. He absorbed the sadness and fury of the masses to feed his power. Following the manual, he became the supreme demon king, the strongest existence of all. Then he questions himself why he is there, defeated on his own throne. If he did everything right, if he was the strongest, why was he the one who fell at the end of this story? The logic does not hold, and his mind spins in search of an answer. How was a perfect being surpassed? He demands to know, how is this possible? The hero only smiles with pure mockery. He mocks the villain's confusion, saying that all demon kings always repeat the same phrases when they lose. The warrior looks at him with pity, inverting the blame, says that they bring this disgrace upon themselves and are the only ones blind to the obvious that is happening. Nonsense. The protagonist refuses to accept this arrogance. The blood boils in his veins and the indignation overflows. Nothing he says makes the slightest sense. But in this moment, the hero begins to explain the mistakes, says that kidnapping the princess and leaving clues is not strategy, it is a formal invitation to death. The hero yells in his face, exposing his stupidity. If it were him, he would have killed the human king immediately, plunging the entire kingdom into absolute chaos. He continues his lesson of practical villainy. Kidnapping the king would generate internal conflict for the throne, and the hatred of humans would never be focused on the demon king. But for the protagonist, this was unacceptable. The sacred book said that without the direct hatred of the masses, his growth would stagnate. He was trapped to the rules. The hero mocks his help, says that sending monsters to the villages was not an attack, it was just a free home delivery XP service. And coming to the tower? For them, this is not a mortal challenge. It is just a convenient shortcut, much easier than hunting monsters through the map. The first floor, full of weak monsters, was not a defense. They used it as a gym, training each ability safely before going up. The realization finally hits while he bleeds. He was too careful not to kill them, wanting to maximize the harvest, blind from the cursed manual. The answer to his blind devotion is the steel. Without hesitation, the hero strikes the final blow, turning all the preparation into a bloodbath. The world loses its color and the air is lacking. In his last breath, the dread takes over, not of death, but of the total insignificance of his grand plan. Fallen at the enemy's feet, he hears the cruel truth. When the tower gets boring, just kill the final boss so the system resets and brings novelties. He smiles like an adrenaline addict. The castle, the life of the king, all of this was nothing more than an amusement park ideal for these lunatics. The final humiliation is not death, it is gratitude. They laugh and call him Godfather, celebrating how well he fed them with easy experience. Their gratitude is the final proof of failure. They do not see him as a threat, but as the owner of a park, thanking for the good hunt. Godfather? His mind shatters with this word. His supreme tower, his pride, was reduced to a mere hunting field for their amusement. The hero's smile is disgusting. He admits that many died, but it matters little the lives lost as long as he has gained fame and glory in the process. The blade rises for the mercy strike. The goodbye sounds so casual, as if he were just ending a boring work shift. The king's teeth grind with enough strength to break. How does a hero dare treat him like this? His entire existence has become a bad joke. The humiliation burns more than the wounds. If this is the result. Then what the hell were those patterns of the Demon King that he followed blindly? But he refuses. He cannot accept this pathetic end. Die in vain like a simple step in the ladder of success of an arrogant human? Never. The fury explodes, rejecting reality. In a last roar of defiance that tears his throat, he proclaims his identity. He is the Demon King, but fate is cruel and indifferent to the scream. The sound of steel cutting flesh silences the protest, a dry noise that decrees the end of his era. The darkness consumes him together with the blade. His vision splits in half as well as his pride, and all that remains is the absolute silence of death. The vision darkens and the faces of those damned begin to blur. They look at him not as a worthy enemy, but as a task already concluded. The cold ceiling of the castle is the last thing he sees. The warm blood spreads across the floor, marking the place where his legend should have reigned. He hears their footsteps moving away. The sound of the boots against the floor echoes like hammer blows on the pride, leaving him behind like disposable trash. But the hatred does not die with the body. Those who dare look from above, who mock his existence, will not leave unpunished. With the little strength that remains, he fixes his gaze on the enemy's back, engraves each detail, each movement. His will refuses to fade now. They will pay. Each laugh, each mockery, each drop of blood. The bill has come and he guarantees that the price will be much higher than they imagine. The hero claims his horns as a trophy, as if he were a hunted animal. This disgusting greed will be the fuel for the final gambit. Suddenly the air changes. Something in the energy of the environment makes the hero stop. He feels the danger, the anomaly that arises from the corpse he thought he had defeated. Even if it costs the rest of his essence, the king activates the forbidden magic. It does not matter if he ceases to exist as long as he takes all of them along. The expression of the human changes from arrogance to pure terror. He realizes it too late. The game is not over. The true revenge begins now. The forbidden energy releases itself with an uncontrollable violence. It is not just a magical explosion, it is the total collapse of his own vital essence. The arrogant smile of the hero disappears. He screams in panic for everyone to run, realizing that he fell into the final suicidal trap. But there is nowhere to run. The shockwave swallows everything ahead, disintegrating stone and flesh without distinction. The tower becomes their tomb. He sees the shadows of those who mocked him being vaporized. The army he created is swept from existence by his last act of pure resentment. While his consciousness dissolves in the light, the epiphany hits him. The manual was wrong. The honor, the rules, the pattern, all of that was his ruin. If he had not been so foolish in following those cursed guidelines, if he had acted like a true monster, the result would be different. If destiny gives only one more chance, he swears by the destroyed soul, screw the manual, screw the patterns. He will do everything his own way. The tower collapses, taking the weak past with it. Next time there will be no training nor mercy. He will bring the true hell to this world. The physical world disappears, giving place to a cold and silent void. Distorted voices echo in the darkness, like an ancient spell going back in time. Suddenly the air fills his lungs with violence. The eyes open in shock, the heart races. He is still alive? Where is he? He looks around, still dizzy. The dirty stone ceiling and blood disappeared, replaced by a glass dome under the moonlight. Where the hell did he end up? He is not alone. He is surrounded by rows of young people in impeccable military uniforms. The silence of death was replaced by murmurs. What is this? He brings his hand to his face and feels the cold sweat. The heart beats strongly in his chest, pumping warm blood. It is unbelievable, but he really is alive. A shrill voice breaks his thoughts, shouting his name. Berje Deias. It had been so long since he heard his name said without an insult attached. His feet move almost on their own, guided by instinct. The presenter urges him, impatient. Everything feels like a bizarre and vivid dream too real to be false. While he walks through the hall, the familiarity of the environment hits him like a physical punch. He knows this place. He knows exactly where he is stepping. The old director is in front of him, complaining about the slowness. He asks indignantly why the student is acting strange right on the graduation day. The old man pins the red emblem on his chest. The insignia given only to the elite, the definitive proof that he graduated as an official Demon King of the Academy. The pieces of the puzzle finally fit together. The new insignia, the director alive, the uniform. There is only one logical explanation. He is back. He is exactly on the day of his graduation at the military academy 15 years in the past, before committing all those stupid mistakes. He does not know the reason for the return, but he understands the meaning. Destiny gave a second chance and he will not waste it with the same mistakes. The master of ceremonies calls him. As the best student, the summa cum laude, the honor of reciting the class oath falls on his shoulders. In front of him, him, the giant hologram with the sacred laws appears. The commandments that dictated his past life and led him straight to ruin, the patterns of the Demon King. He stares at those shining letters and feels a bitter taste in his mouth. That text is not a guide, it is a death sentence. He memorized every comma of this damn text. He dedicated his youth to following these rules blindly, believing that they would lead him to glory. But the truth is cruel. Following this trash only turned him into a stepping stone, a disposable toy for the fame of those hypocrite heroes. Everyone waits. They want him to swear, before all the demonic elite, that he will dedicate his new life to following this same failed path. The anger boils inside him. The universe is joking? He just died because of this and now they want him to swear loyalty to this trash. The presenter insists, oblivious to the volcano about to explode. Read the patterns, he says. He has no idea how much the protagonist hates these words now. His teeth grind with such force that the sound echoes. The pressure is unbearable. He will not submit to this humiliation again. Before the entire assembly, his voice cuts the air with an absolute rejection. The "I refuse" reverberates through the hall, freezing the ceremony and shocking everyone. The silence is heavy. The other graduates look at each other with doubts stamped on their faces. Nobody understands what is happening with the model student. The anger explodes. He yells at the top of his lungs that I will not swear loyalty to something so stupid. Following these rules is not honor, it is complete idiocy. His eyes burn as he faces the director. He sentences the truth that nobody dares to say. The Demon King pattern is absolute garbage that needs to end. His words hit the crowd like a physical attack. The faces distort in pure horror. For them, insulting the sacred pattern is the greatest possible crime. The old director reacts in the worst way. The shock is so violent that his composure breaks together with his glasses, his magical pressure leaking through pure hatred. His disbelief turns into murderous fury in a second. He roars like a beast, unable to accept that his prodigy students spit on the entire legacy of the academy. The entire castle trembles with the repercussion of the act. A deafening crash marks the end of the peaceful ceremony and the beginning of a new chaotic era. It was in that moment that destiny turned. He stopped being this summa cum laude genius to become, officially, the worst and most hated graduate in history. The fist of the Archduke smashes the podium with violence. The insolence of the best student of the academy will not be tolerated without a response matching that fury. The Archduke Arcane foams with rage. He roars the boy's name with hatred, threatening to execute him right there for daring to insult the sacred patterns. But, surprisingly, he restrains himself. Because of the perfect grades and undeniable talent, they decide to give the boy one last chance to live. The condition is clear: take back what he said and ask forgiveness from the kingdom. Otherwise, his fate will be the immediate exile to the deadly region of Arein. The hall is taken by terrified murmurs. Arein is not just a bad place, it is the known graveyard where demon kings go to die. The nobles complain, thirsty for blood. For the elite, giving a chance to a criminal like him is an insult. They want to see the execution now. The Archduke reinforces the weight of the sentence with a somber look. Arein is the worst domain of all, an abyss that has already consumed the life of countless kings. But instead of fear, the protagonist's eyes shine with determination. He does not hesitate. He faces the old man and challenges, "You can send me there." The shock is general. With an arrogant smile, he makes clear that he will use that infernal place to prove that their precious patterns are trash. The old man's patience ends. He declares him a lost case and activates the magic. The red circle shines and the destiny is sealed. Arein is now his home. The sentence is brutal. He is stripped of all privileges and armies. The portal opens to spit him out alone, without any servant to serve him. While he falls far from the castle, the prohibition echoes. The doors of the demonic kingdom are locked for him until he conquers that cursed land. Despite the free fall, his mind is calm. He caused chaos at the graduation, so being thrown there was expected. Destiny at last repeats itself. Below him is Arein. It is not only a deadly zone, it is the cradle of his assassins. The place where the heroes who killed him are now. The irony is great. In the past life, he chose to come here out of arrogance, thinking that the strongest deserved the challenge of the maximum difficulty. This arrogance cost his life. He tried to play fair and follow rules while they exploited every loophole. But the mistake will not happen twice. The landing is not subtle. He collides with the frozen mountains like a meteor, an explosion that announces to the north that the true danger has arrived. He stands in the middle of the crater in the Ergest Mountains. The cutting wind of the northern continent greets him, but the fire of revenge burns more. This time will be different. He will not be the final boss waiting to die. He will turn the game around and use the same dirty coin they used against him. He threw the demon manual in the trash. To hunt these hypocrites, he will adopt their tactic. He will crush them using the hero's patterns. The cold steel cleans the dirt from the fall. Even exiled in this frozen hell, posture is vital. He prepares himself, for the true war demands an impeccable appearance. While buttoning the shirt, memory betrays him. By protocol, he should not be here alone. The system always assigned the best servant to the best king. Gordon Dyrek. He remembers that face well. The number one of the Demon Academy, with that calculating longing gaze hiding a dangerous ambition behind the glasses. The law was clear. While they learned to rule, the servants were trained to serve. It was a perfect pair, forged by the rules of the kingdom to dominate everything. Jealousy corroded the other graduates. For them, serving the summa cum laude was the supreme shortcut to success, and they deeply lamented their own weakness. Gordon maintained the diplomatic posture, praising the masters of the others with an educated smile. But his words hid the arrogance of someone who knows he is superior. The mask fell only when speaking Berje's name. His eyes shone with an intense fanaticism. For him, no other king came close to that supreme existence. He exalted the demon-dragon blood like a religion. For a genius like him, graduating in the same year was not luck, it was a divine blessing. His mind flew far, visualizing colossal statues of them over conquered worlds. The eternal legend of the great demon king and his loyal lieutenant. He wanted eternal glory at the king's side, certain that they would write history. But by refusing the patterns, Berje left that brilliant future and his loyal servant behind. But Berje's voice cut that delirious fantasy like a blade. This is wrong. The refusal echoed, shattering the perfect future. He saw Gordon's reaction in the audience. The genuine shock of seeing his idol, the one who should lead him to glory, throwing everything away without hesitation. Berje shouted with all the air in his lungs that the patterns were trash. It was not just a refusal, it was a direct attack on everything the servant believed in. For a rule fanatic like Gordon, that was a devastating mental blow. His world broke right there, along with the sanity of the moment. Back to the present, the blizzard reveals a familiar silhouette. Gordon is there, standing in the deep snow with his luggage, following the regulation. His look is a mix of shock and confusion. He trembles, but it is unknown if it is because of the freezing cold of Arein or the total disbelief in the situation. The sentence said the king would be alone, but the irony is great. The system forces the best demon to follow the best king, even to hell. He stares at the master in silence, the cutting wind shaking his thin clothes. He abandoned the comfort of the elite to come to this place of death. Berje does not show weakness. He extends his hand with the usual arrogance and greets him. Good to see you, Gordon. The most loyal and useful servant has finally arrived. But he ignores the greeting. The question that was stuck in his throat explodes. Why? Why would you do something like that? He demands answers. The shock breaks Gordon's mind. He screams in panic, certain that violating the sacred patterns and coming to this frozen hell is their death sentence. The protagonist tries to calm him with sarcasm, but it does not work. For him, the problem is not the stress or the hair, but the fact that his world has just collapsed. He observes that nervous breakdown and finds it strange. In his memory before the regression, Gordon was the embodiment of confidence and coldness. What changed this time? Suddenly, the fear becomes fanaticism. He smiles in a maniac way, stating that if it were not Arein, it wouldn't be fun. The impossible difficulty motivates him. The situation is new, but his change is frightening. Better not explain the regression now, or he will be sure that his king went insane. After the outburst, he breathes deeply in the cold air. He gathers the luggage in the snow, trying to recover his breath and what remained of his professional dignity. He adjusts his glasses and asks forgiveness for the scandal. The mask of perfect servant returns to his face and he swears to fulfill his duty, accepting the new reality. The strategist goes into action. He points out that the terrain is isolated and full of monsters, concluding that it is the worst possible place to build the base. The king ignores the servant's logic. With a sharp movement, he drives the red artifact into the hard snow and decrees, the tower will be raised exactly there and now. It is the tower seed, the supreme item that, when planted in the ground and fed with royal blood, will make the fortress sprout from the earth. The first rule requires that the tower be visible and accessible. The manual forbids hostile places only to make life easier for the damn heroes. Gordon panics, shouting that he is throwing away his pride. To him, violating the sacred rules is a betrayal of their own race. Berje does not blame him. He understands the disgust in his gaze. For a demon, faith in the patterns is something carved deeply into the soul and bones. It is impossible to reject this brainwashing without facing death head-on. He knows this because before dying he was as blind as him. But the pain of betrayal opened his eyes. He squeezes his hand tightly, using his own physical pain to focus on the reality he needs to change. He lets his blood drip onto the seed and decrees, the patterns are trash. Trying to play fair in a hell like Arein would be suicide. Gordon's speech dies in his throat. He finally realizes that the master is not just talking, he is acting. The magic begins to respond. A deep rumble echoes through the frozen mountains. The earth trembles violently, as if a colossal beast were waking beneath the snow. The seed absorbs the sacrifice and shines with an intense crimson. The power contained there explodes, distorting the air around it with its pressure. The ground ruptures in an eruption of energy. The fortress will not be built brick by brick. It will be born from absolute power and will. Red energy explodes in the snow with violence. The magic circle expands, covering the entire frozen plateau with overwhelming magical pressure. He smiles at the chaos. Choosing Arein was not suicide, it was pure strategy. This place is infested with heroes, and that is exactly what he needs. The system responds to the call. The tower recognizes the demon dragon lineage and his name. The contract is sealed and the summoning begins. The earth splits and the colossus of black stone emerges. It is not a common construction. It is a magical fortress sprouting from the frozen ground like a mountain. He explains the cruel truth. The heroes discovered how the tower works. They used the demon's blind obedience to the rules to turn their home into a tomb. Gordon finally understands the point. The old rules did not protect the demons, they served the humans. They were, in truth, the heroes' patterns. The completed structure pierces the sky. A dark and imposing citadel, raised in the heart of enemy territory, defying the whiteness of the snow. Gordon looks up, tiny before that greatness. The fear in his eyes blends with respect. The impossible was accomplished before him. Without wasting time, the king invites his lieutenant to enter. The gigantic gates open. The cold outside is left behind. Now they are in his domain. The first floor reveals itself. A vast and empty hall, echoing their footsteps. Here begins the new legend, built far from the rules that killed him. The reality of the new base is desolate. There are no monsters, traps, or servants. It is just an empty shell, a tower without privileges for an exiled king. They climb to the 5th floor, the royal chamber. The silence is absolute. There are no armies to command, only the echo of footsteps in this deserted hall. Gordon tries to rationalize the chaos. Since the tower is standing, he seeks comfort in the next rule of the manual. If we have a base, we need hostages. The second rule of the patterns is clear. The demon king must kidnap royalty, preferably someone vital to the throne, to maximize political chaos. Gordon asks permission to speak, trying to salvage the campaign. He believes that following protocol is the only way to obtain the demon energy they need. He opens the map and points to Corzin, the neighboring kingdom. His plan is simple: kidnap the crown princess and use the kingdom's fury as fuel. He expects the master to refuse and freak out again, but is surprised. Fine, we will do that. The dry response leaves him shocked, not understanding the change. But there is a condition. The king already has a target in mind and will go alone. Gordon must stay and protect the empty tower, for a king cannot lose his only home. He does not understand the game. Berje will not kidnap a princess to follow the rules. He will do it precisely to prove that their pattern is trash. Gordon sighs in relief, completely deluded. He thinks the king has returned to reason and that the stress has passed. Little does he know the real plan is far more insane. Gordon asks who the victim will be. Perched on the window, Berje prepares to depart. The answer to success is not in strength, but in cunning. He hesitates for a second, calculating the route. He will not go after the obvious. His target is a key piece precisely because she is considered useless by all of them. He flies far away, ignoring the neighbors. He crosses the continent to the southernmost nation, the kingdom of Hilderin, the farthest land possible from the base. Silence reigns in the palace. He lands softly on the stone balcony, observing the curtains that dance with the night wind in a forgotten tower. Through the glass, he sees a solitary young woman awake. She looks at the sky, unaware that darkness itself has descended to change her life forever. She is not the heir to the throne nor a powerful mage. She is the 13th princess, the figure with the least presence and political power in the entire royal lineage. Shock prints on her face when she sees him floating. With a dark smile, he decrees the end of her peace. "I came to take you with me, princess." The atmosphere in the room changes completely. She does not scream, she only stares at him with those large trembling eyes, paralyzed by the sudden presence. Fear seems to fight with curiosity. With an unsteady voice, she asks the only question she can form in the face of death. Who are you?" There is no reason to hide. With the full moon illuminating his horns, he introduces himself as her nightmare, the demon king who came to kidnap you. He expects panic, crying, a plea for help. But what he gets is something that defies all logic. A muffled sound of laughter escapes her lips. Instead of begging for her life, she throws a challenging look at him and asks an absurd question. "Are you sure you can handle me?" "What?" The king frowns, offended. She thinks his race is a joke. He is a demon king, the embodiment of power. Of course he can handle a human. Her answer breaks his brain. With a sweet smile and a frightening calm, she simply agrees. "Then I let you take me." This is too easy. No one accepts a kidnapping like this. He demands to know what she is plotting, but she says she already expected this fate for being a princess. He brings his face closer to hers, imposing pressure. He warns that he won't fall for cheap tricks, because his situation is far too desperate to fail now. She keeps the innocent smile and uses logic against him. After all, how could she have prepared a trap if she didn't even know he would come today? She has a point, but that calm, something is very wrong. It's as if she were waiting for a taxi, not for a monster. Even suspicious, he can't back down. He lifts the girl into his arms. She doesn't resist, light as a feather, but the weight of that strange smile bothers him more than any armor. He flies back north, cutting through the clouds with his prize. She looks at the scenery in awe, acting like a tourist instead of a hostage. They arrive at the tower. Gordon waits in the hall, shocked to see he actually returned with a woman. He tries to keep his composure, but the relief on his face is visible. He releases her onto the floor and introduces her. Gordon, always practical, asks where they are going to lock her up. The dungeon would be the standard, but she doesn't seem like a common prisoner. He decides she will stay on the 4th floor. After all, the tower is empty and it makes no difference. Gordon agrees, promising to keep a close eye on her. The girl accepts her fate with irritating tranquility. As she climbs the stairs, he watches her back. He doesn't know what she's hiding, but he feels he brought something dangerous inside. The harsh reality of captivity finally reveals itself. The floor is cold, the walls bare. This is not a fairy tale castle. It is a prison of stone. Looking around, loneliness hits her. Luxury is over. There are no soft pillows, no warm blankets, and no maid will come to answer her call. Memories of home sting. Here there are no flowered gardens, no gentle breeze of the kingdom. All that remains is the cold emptiness of this isolated tower. But instead of despair, a smile forms on the princess's face. She realizes that compared to certain death, this empty room is an acceptable luxury. As she settles in, the king's attention is drawn to an unexpected invitation. The Beast Tower wants his presence immediately in its domain. Gordon thinks it's a welcome party, but Berje is no fool. This is a hierarchy test, a cheap attempt to intimidate him upon arrival. Arein is the only place where Demon King's pride breaks. The environment is so hostile they are forced to forge pathetic alliances. Before he ignored them. Now he sees an opportunity. If they want to play politics, he will join in and use them as steps to rise. They reach enemy territory. The Beast Tower rises in the forest, an ancient fortress reflecting the savage brutality of its master. And there he is, Draxon the Beast King, a veteran monster who has ruled this patch of hell for 70 years, devouring his prey. The reception is hostile. He stares at him with red eyes and mocks his fame, saying the rookie who defied the rules doesn't impress him. Berje is unfazed by his size. He holds the gaze and pushes back. Did you call me here to fight or to talk? Say it. His laughter echoes through the hall. He admits he's not acting alone. The Archduke ordered him to be Berje's personal jailer and overseer. Instead of fear, he responds with disdain. He calls the Archduke a loud old vampire, treating their highest authority like an inside joke. The provocation lands. Draxon growls, incredulous at the audacity. To him, insulting the Archduke is a crime demanding immediate death. With a violent motion, he stomps on the flesh he was eating. The sound of bones crushing against the stone floor serves as a brutal warning of his strength. He points to the mess and gives a humiliating ultimatum. Lick it, he orders, offering forgiveness in exchange for the rookie's complete dignity. The protagonist stays calm before the offense. The enemy thinks he is here to be punished, but he has no idea of the real danger. With a dark smile, he quotes the manual they worship. According to orthodoxy, demon kings cannot kill each other, he reminds him. But that protection is an illusion. The word, however, leaves his lips and the atmosphere shifts, becoming instantly heavy as lead. He releases his suppressed power. The ground splits beneath his feet and a storm of red energy sweeps through the hall, shattering the rival's arrogance. He stares at the fear in the beast's eyes and asks, "Do you really think I'd follow that rule?" To him, that code is just paper to burn. The opponent's realization hits. Cold sweat runs down his fur as he stammers before that aura. Now he knows, the real monster has arrived. Draxon tries to use the Archduke's name as a shield, stuttering about deadlines and authority, but the cold sweat betrays that his spirit is already broken. Berje turns his back and walks toward the exit. With total indifference, he cuts the speech short, announcing that the princess has already been properly kidnapped. Gordon follows as he leaves the last provocation hanging in the air. He says the girl is his type, leaving the beasts behind confused at the audacity. They leave the beast territory and return to the fortress. The Black Tower rises imposingly in the snow, the only place where his will is law. In the hall, Gordon praises the majestic posture. The king dismisses the flattery. He only ensured that coward won't try anything stupid for now, but caution is vital. He orders Gordon to go check on the prisoner immediately. He needs to figure out the best way to use that strange girl. As the servant departs, the echo of footsteps fills the stone corridor. Silence returns to the throne room, bringing with it the weight of reality in this exile. The situation is problematic. If this is the attitude of all the kings of Arein, surviving here will be far more irritating than he calculated. The price for rejecting orthodoxy is high, but staring into the emptiness, he is certain, even if he went back 1,000 times, he would make the same choice again. His honor is all he has. He can face the entire hell, but he would rather die than bow his head to that garbage system. He decides to restart from zero without making mistakes. Since he kidnapped a low-rank princess, he expects a pitiful amount of energy in return, but the system defies logic. The number 13,219 shines on the screen. Cold sweat runs down. How the hell is a hostage considered useless worth that fortune? Before he can process this miscalculation, an alert appears. A video message arrives sent directly from the Beast Tower. It is Draxon. The arrogant wolf has changed his tone, acting like a generous and benevolent veteran, sending a welcome gift to the rookie. Berje receives the transferred item. He is impressed by the quality and begins to doubt. Was that wolf's stupidity just an act? Suddenly, instinct screams. A chill runs down his spine and his expression changes. Something is very wrong. That wasn't a normal gift. Gordon bursts into the hall, pale and screaming. The panic in his voice confirms the bad premonition. Something drastic is happening on the 4th floor. Upon arriving there, the cold stone is gone. The environment has been taken over by a vibrant light, vegetation, and butterflies. A life that does not belong to demons. The Demon King freezes, incredulous. Where there should be an empty prisoner's room, now there is a fairy tale garden sprouting from the ground. The system confirms the anomaly, naturalization in progress. Draxon's gift was not a weapon, it was a seed to terraform the tower. The room became a sanctuary of spirits and slimes. A vibrant magical ecosystem that was created, without any doubt, by that girl's absurd power. His mind races. Manipulating nature on this level requires total mastery of the 4 elements. There is only one legendary spiritualist capable of this in the world. She confirms his fear with an innocent smile. She is not the useless one he was looking for. She introduces herself as Ernan, the powerful first princess of the kingdom. The ground disappears under his feet and cold sweat falls. The reality of the colossal mistake hits him violently. He made the worst strategic error possible. She laughs, realizing he confused her with her weak sister, Elena. He aimed at the most useless piece on the board and ended up stealing their ultimate weapon. While he panics, the kingdom of Hildren collapses. The news of the crown jewel's kidnapping spreads, turning peace into chaos. The king loses his sanity. With eyes injected with pure fury, he orders every hero and soldier in the country to gather immediately for total war. A colossal army marches screaming for blood. Berje wanted to avoid problems and farm in peace, but unintentionally he just pulled the aggro of the whole world. With a mischievous smile, she asks if he is capable of handling her. The provocation is not about combat, but about something much more problematic. His mind works fast. Ernan Hildren is known for having monstrous elemental mana. How the hell did he not detect that energy before? She reveals the secret, a ring inheritance of the royal family, capable of completely hiding mana, a cheating item that fooled his dragon senses. The game turned. She gives him the option of sending her back, knowing he is in a dead end. Returning the hostage now would be admitting defeat. If he sends her back, he will be ridiculed by the other demon kings. His pride and reputation in Arein would be destroyed before even starting. He has no choice. He swallows hard and makes the difficult decision. He will have to keep this ticking time bomb here and hope the plan doesn't explode in his face. Suddenly the system beeps. A red alert flashes in front of him, indicating a massive amount of directed fury coming his way. The value spikes, 19,521 points. Almost 20,000. Just for kidnapping the wrong princess, he gained more energy than he ever dreamed of getting so soon. He faces the girl with seriousness. It doesn't matter if she is the 1st or the 13th, or if she has the power of a god. She is still a hostage. Far away in the kingdom of Hildren, the bells ring. The human war machine begins to move, preparing a crusade to rescue their precious jewel. The king roars from his throne, the fury of a father echoing through the hall. He does not want negotiations, he demands the demon's head and the return of his daughter. The counselors try to calm the storm. They beg for patience, for they don't even know which of the demon kings committed such insanity. But logic does not work against hatred. The monarch explodes, accusing his generals of incompetence while the princess is in the claws of evil. In the midst of the chaos, a doubt arises. The strategists begin eliminating suspects. The king of lust is already occupied with another royal kidnapping. The counselor points out the strangeness of the situation. A demon king just died for greed. Who would be foolish enough to repeat the mistake now? The deduction strikes the nobles like lightning. Silence falls over the council as they process the only possible explanation for such a suicidal act. The king's hand crushes the arm of the golden throne. The pressure in the air is suffocating, mixing royal authority with the bloodlust of a vengeful father. The king reaches the final conclusion with a murderous look. Only a rookie, someone ignorant of the danger, would dare challenge the kingdom like this. Suddenly a report arrives. The teleportation magic was traced. The trail leads directly north, pointing to the dangerous Ergest Mountains. The name of the place makes the king freeze. He knows what exists there. The enemy did not flee to a common castle, but to the most hostile hostile terrain in the world. The solitary tower in the Ergest Mountains stands out in the white vastness. It is there that Demon King Berje awaits the storm he himself created. Gordon, always cautious, warns about the imminent arrival of the army. He fears that the full force of a human kingdom will be too much for the two of them. But instead of concern, a sly smile appears on the master's face. He still thinks like a common demon, trapped in the fear of the enemy's numerical strength. He reassures the lieutenant with an absolute certainty. The royal army will never arrive here. The strategy does not depend on strength, but on geography. He points to the map. Hildren is in the far south and they are in the north. To get here, they would have to violate the borders of dozens of nations. No country would allow a foreign army in their lands. The king's only option will be to hire a private force, the Guild of Heroes. Far away, the prediction comes true. The king, blocked by international politics, is forced to swallow his pride and call the mercenaries. The distress request arrives at the imposing tower of the guild, the place where warriors gather who fight not for honor, but for the highest payment. But the reaction is panic. Upon reading Ergest Mountains, their courage disappears. Nobody wants to risk their lives in that frozen hell, not even for the princess. That was the plan from the beginning. Greedy heroes hate real risks. By isolating himself in danger, he created the perfect barrier against them. Gordon watches the master with a mix of doubt and admiration. He realizes that his knowledge about this hell is far too deep for a rookie. His intuition nearly hits the mark. He feels that the king moves on this strategic board like someone who has already played this game before. In the palace, the king's frustration explodes. He yells indignantly upon discovering that none of those supposed heroes accepted the suicidal mission. The bitter reality hits the monarch. In Arein, the word hero is synonymous with mercenary. Without guaranteed profit, they won't lift a finger. He bought time, but time does not win wars. Berje looks at the resources and the math is cruel. He does not have energy to stop what will come. He knows the terror that approaches. The underscore of the heroes that massacred him is still fresh in memory. The fear is his fuel. He needs to change the tactic. He calls Gordon and drops the bomb. Contact Draxon. We are going to sell our precious demon energy for human money. His reaction is priceless. His eyes almost jump out of their sockets and his voice fails. For a demon, selling energy is an unthinkable heresy. He falls into despair, listing the priceless value of their essence. Trading the power to evolve the species for human coins? Madness. The king remains calm on the throne. The energy he has is useless against an army, but a mountain of human gold that can buy victory. They arrive at the fortress city of Holton Work, the only point of civilization near the mountains. This is where the plan to buy victory will begin. He walks confidently to the main gate. The guards block the passage immediately, demanding identification to enter the border area. The guards stare at him with suspicion. For them, a mercenary wandering alone near the Ergest Mountains is not brave, he is just a lunatic or a spy. He wastes no time arguing. He tosses a gold coin into the air, and the sound of money makes their hostile attitude disappear much faster than magic. He knows human greed well. He suggests the usual division of the bribe and passes by them without being searched. Money is the key that opens any door. The square is busy, but he has no time for tourism. He needs to find the right place to spend the gold, so he goes straight to look for a guide. He finds the target, the Guild of the Scarlet Falcons. Inside, the atmosphere is absolute laziness, with mercenaries drinking instead of training for battle. He listens to their conversation. They love this place because the kingdom's soldiers do the dirty work against monsters, while they only profit easily. They laugh at the rumors about the tower. They say it is a lie because, in their limited minds, no demon king would build a base so far away. And the kidnapping of the princess? For them, it is a joke. The idea of a king traveling the entire continent just for a kidnapping sounds too absurd to be true. They mock the Guild of Heroes, convinced that the refusal of the job was not out of fear of death, but just a cheap negotiation tactic. Their leader yells that it is all a theater. For them, the princess and the danger are just bargaining chips that heroes use to extort more gold. The tavern explodes in laughter. They all agree that heroes are crazy about money, completely blind to the fact that the real danger is listening. I see, so that's how it is. The cold voice cuts their joy. Berje emerges from the shadows behind the leader, with a smile that promises only pain. The mercenary falls backward, screaming in fright. The sudden presence of that mysterious man turns their arrogance into immediate panic. Berje praises their knowledge with sarcasm. He needs a guide, so he makes a simple offer: leave only one alive. The rest leave. But they choose violence. Drawing swords and daggers, the fools attack as a group, shouting that the intruder will not leave alive today. The response is brutal. Berje does not use magic, only pure physical strength. The sound of breaking bones fills the hall as he dismantles the group. Bodies fly through the air like rag dolls. The difference in power is absurd. He wipes the floor with the local elite without even taking his hands out of his pockets. The last giant standing tries a desperate attack with a club. He roars, not realizing that attacking a demon king is signing his own death certificate. target. The giant tries to fight back, but it is useless. With a single downward strike, the king crushes his defense, sinking the huge body into the wooden floor as if it were paper. The physical pain is surpassed by psychological terror. He stares at him with dilated pupils, stuttering the only word his broken mind can formulate, monster. The rest of the guild tries to react when they see the leader fall. Dozens of crossbowmen appear on the mezzanine, aiming their trembling weapons at him in desperation, but they are far too slow. He advances like a whirlwind of violence, destroying the wooden structures and throwing the shooters away before they can pull the trigger. The blood boils and he lets the murderous aura leak. A predatory smile splits his face, showing them that they are not facing a human but calamity itself. The hall becomes a people blender. Bodies fly in all directions, furniture turns into splinters and the screams of pain fill the air, silencing any previous bravado. Outside, the city continues its apathetic routine. The residents hear the crash of battle and just sigh, already used to the daily brutality of mercenaries. In seconds, the city's elite is sprawled on the ground, groaning among the rubble. Only he remains standing, looking at the chaos he caused with total indifference. He steps on the survivor's chest and makes the generous offer. He will live, but only if he answers all questions without trying any tricks. With the information obtained through force, he proceeds to the true destination. A luxurious mansion stands out in the poor city, the home of the one who truly rules here. They walk through the stone streets of the fortress city. The mercenary, now tame like a lamb, guides them to the true underworld of the local trade. The place is depressing, full of filthy cells. But his disappointment is not because of the cruelty, but because of the merchandise. He only sees weak and useless humans there. He stares at the guide coldly. The man trembles, clutching his coin pouch, when Berje demands to see the real stock. Don't make me waste time with common trash, he warns. Fear works better than any payment. He changes posture instantly, promising to take them to the VIP area where the true relics are. Gordon watches everything in silence. He realizes the irony. Human greed for money is as disgusting as demons' hunger for energy. In the end, they are the same. They descend to the deepest basement. The sound of footsteps on the cold stone announces the arrival of a new master for those forgotten goods. The guide opens the heavy iron doors. The environment changes. Here security is reinforced and the smell of despair is replaced by something far more valuable. The king explains his objective to Gordon. He does not want common servants. He is here for the otherworldly species, rare creatures that humans captured as trophies. And then he finds him. Chained in the darkness, an elf stares at him. His race is famous for their unshakable integrity, and it is exactly that quality he will corrupt. He smiles in front of his new acquisition. He doesn't need a warrior, he needs a spy. He will use his honesty to plant chaos and destroy the heroes from the inside. While Berje negotiates in the shadows, the light arrives at the palace. Hillen Cargill, the hero of Hilderin, enters the hall, answering the king's desperate call. The shining knight kneels with confidence. He not only promises the rescue, but swears to bring the head of the bold demon king as a victory trophy. With his hand on his chest, he seals his fate with the classic phrase, "In the name of justice." Little does he know that he is marching straight into a perfect trap. The plan is Machiavellian. He will use his race's natural fame as camouflage. He will plant this elf as a spy to instill chaos among the heroes. The logic is infallible. Humans blindly believe that elves are pure and innocent beings. They would never suspect a knife coming from that holy hand. He turns to the merchant and points at the target. The negotiation is direct. "I'm taking this one." And of course he points at Gordon, indicating who will pay the bill. The seller hesitates, thinking about the profit, but the king's murderous aura fills the room. "Do you have any objection?" Terror makes him accept any value immediately. Before taking him, he needs a moment alone. He orders everyone to leave. Gordon, worried, warns that the slave may be in a berserk fury state. He dismisses his caution with a wave. If that thing tries to attack him, it will be just another corpse in the count. He knows exactly what he's dealing with. The iron gate groans as it is opened. The sound echoes in the damp cell as he walks toward the darkness where the pride of that race was chained. He observes his deplorable state. A noble elf reduced to a caged animal. With a gesture of magic, he destroys the locks that held him to the dirty floor. He raises his head, alert. His nose sniffs the air and his eyes narrow. That energy. You are a demon? He perceives the danger immediately. The king ignores the obvious question and goes straight to the point. He didn't come to offer freedom, he came to sell hatred. "I am here to give you a chance to take revenge on the humans." He admits that the offer is tempting, but the doubt remains. Trusting demons is as hard as trusting the humans who enslaved him. He looks into his eyes and makes the proposal. He asks only for 50 years of loyalty. In exchange, he personally guarantees his safety and his freedom. For an elf, 50 years is a blink of an eye. He argues that this is much better than continuing to be humiliated by humans in this filthy cell. He touches the wand. How to trust someone who destroys the world tree. The demonic nature is a direct affront to everything he considers sacred. The argument is solid and catches Berje by surprise. He is not just a slave with anger, he is a devotee. Empty words will not work in this negotiation. He He smiles, accepting the challenge. If it is an absolute guarantee he wants to seal the agreement, then that is exactly what he will deliver now. He places his hand on his chest and invokes the magic. He swears by the patterns of the Demon King that he will fulfill his word and never touch the precious world tree. He knows that this oath is inviolable. In exchange, he demands that he swear by the tree that he will serve him faithfully during the entire period of the contract. A smile of respect appears on his face. He finds him strange, but the distrust has fallen. The agreement was finally sealed based on the ancient laws. He stands up as Granada, but he makes a hilarious mistake. He says he will only take the oath when he sees the true king, thinking that Berje is just a servant. He smiles and reveals the simple truth. He serves no one. I am the Demon King. The elf stares at him with an empty expression, trying to process the absurd. He bursts into hysterical laughter. For him, it is impossible. A king would never leave his fortress to buy slaves, for he would become weak far from the tower. Between tears of laughter, he mocks Berje's face. He says that if he really is the king, he will serve him not for 50 but for 100 years. His mouth is his grave. He teleports everyone to the 5th floor of the tower. The silence of the empty hall echoes the truth, and the smile on the elf's face disappears instantly. He sits on the throne and collects the debt. 100 years. Those were your words, not mine. The shock on his face is priceless when he realizes the joke became a real contract. He starts screaming that he fell into a scam. The problem is not that he is the king but the poverty of the place. He points at the emptiness, outraged by the total lack of furniture. Reality hits him hard. The first 3 floors have no traps, monsters, or treasures. It's just cold stone and echo, a completely non-existent defense. And the 4th floor? Instead of terrible beasts, he found butterflies and flowers. He yells, asking what kind of shameful tower doesn't have a single monster. Fear takes over. He is sure that they will be massacred by the heroes in less than a year and refuses to sink together with this ruined ship that the king created. But the exit door has already closed. The king's eyes shine with the purple magic of the bond. Did you forget? He asks with crushing pressure. We have a contract. The crushing pressure in the air leaves no doubt. His laughter dies in his throat. That dense aura confirms the impossible. He really is a demon king. Everything makes sense now. The tower is not empty out of neglect. The terrible monsters of the mountains didn't attack them because they fear the monster inside. Kneeling, he seals the pact. In the name of the world tree, Granada gives his loyalty for 100 years. The chance for revenge has finally appeared. His mind flies far. If the king himself came to get him, his mission must be glorious. He already imagines himself as the right-hand man in a global destruction plan. But Berje cuts his fantasy with the coldness of a practical tyrant. With a satisfied smile, he gives the first supreme order. Right, go make dinner. The elf's brain freezes. Question marks float over his head. He expected war and blood, not a request to become a house servant. Cut to the kitchen. The legendary spy now wears an apron and chops onions. His look screams frustration. I should be part of an evil plan. To make it worse, the hostage joins him with joy. The princess picks up a knife, surrounded by spirits, and asks to bake bread, turning the atmosphere into a sitcom. And so, on the 5th floor of the most dangerous fortress in the world, the demon king, the vengeful elf, and the kidnapped princess sit down for a civilized dinner. The elf cannot swallow the situation. He discreetly points at the girl beside him and stutters the obvious question, Boss, isn't this woman from the kingdom of? The king confirms her identity with the greatest naturalness in the world. Yes, at the table with them is Ernan Hilderin, the jewel of the crown he stole by accident. The elf almost has a heart attack. Kidnapping the imperial heiress and bringing her to an empty tower? He screams that this is a guaranteed death sentence. Berje ignores his panic while cutting the steak. He reminds him that he didn't buy him to complain, but to solve. Sit and eat, he orders coldly. The tension disappears in an instant. He praises the seasoning and the princess smiles, saying that she helped, creating a bizarre domestic atmosphere that breaks the elf's mind. He takes him to the garden and explains the reality. If they have to fight inside there, they are already lost. The real battle cannot happen at his door. He reveals his true function. He doesn't want a bodyguard, he wants a saboteur. He will return to the human world to destroy the heroes from the inside. But a weak spy is useless. With a challenging smile, he calls him to a fight. He needs to see if his hatred has enough strength to back his words. To motivate him, he gives an insulting advantage. No magic, only one hand. And the prize? If he wins, 50 years of slavery will be forgiven. Greed shines in his eyes. He accepts immediately, shouting that he will rip off the king's head, barely able to contain the murderous excitement. He wastes no time. The wind howls when he charges. It is a direct and lethal attack, loaded with the pure will of a vengeful warrior. Granada descends with a storm of blows, desperate to win. But the king blocks every attack with humiliating ease, using only one hand. While dodging, he analyzes his technique. Slavery didn't rust him. He asks if he used the forest mana on the 4th floor to be so sharp. The compliment only irritates him more. He roars, concentrating all the magic into one blow, shouting that the master made a fatal mistake by choosing to fight an elf, but he forgot the terrain. Before he can strike, roots violently sprout from the ground, grabbing his leg and locking his movement. He is exposed. Even shouting about taking his 50 years back, his guard is wide open, a perfect invitation for the counterattack. Berje smiles. His determination is excellent, exactly what he needed to see. But now it is time to teach the real difference of power between the two. The shadow of the king engulfs his. He releases only a fraction of the murderous aura, enough to remind him that he is facing a predator. With glowing eyes, he assures that he will not use demonic magic. He promises to control his strength only enough to not turn him into paste. His realization comes too late. The warrior's pride disappears, replaced by pure panic upon noticing that the incoming blow is unstoppable. The impact shakes the entire mountain. Snow flies with the explosion, ending the small admission test with a boom that echoes across the whole valley. They arrive at Horton Walk, specifically at the HQ of the Scarlet Falcon's mercenaries. The rustic building hides the brute force the king intends to buy today. The reception has changed drastically. The leader, still bruised from the previous beating, now salutes with a forced smile of pure terror and respect. He makes the proposal to hire them for a year. Even humiliated, the man's eyes shine with the possibility of profit, asking anxiously about the budget. He wastes no time negotiating. He throws a heavy bag onto the wood, letting the gold overflow as an initial deposit to buy their soul. The sight of the fortune buys their loyalty instantly. They swear eternal love, but he knows well that mercenaries are only loyal to whoever pays the heaviest. But there is a condition. He pushes the elf forward and warns that he will be the lieutenant. They will have to obey a stranger if they want to see the color of the gold. The elf, with the cheeks swollen from the small test, introduces himself to the new colleagues. "Hello, my name is Granada," he says, holding the dignity that remains. The mercenaries stare at the new lieutenant with skepticism. A bunch of brutes looking sideways at a wounded elf who is now supposedly in charge of them. Tears fall, but not of joy. They realize the trap, stuck between an insane demon king and a vengeful elf as their new direct commander. But gold speaks loudly. They gather in a circle, accepting their fate. The team is formed, bandits led by a slave, financed by evil. He watches the group with satisfaction. They seem mediocre, but surviving in Ergest requires skill. They are the cheap and disposable tools he needs. As he prepares, he predicts the enemy's move. The kingdom is desperate and he knows exactly which hero would accept coming to this frozen hell. It is time to make the investment pay off. He gathers his new squad and announces with authority, "Scarlet Falcon's mercenaries, this is your first mission." His eyes burn with intensity. He doesn't want blood yet, he wants information. Investigate Hillen Cargill, the hero hired by the kingdom of Hilderan. With the hero's problem left to Granada, the focus now turns to the imposing Tower of Berje. Seated on his throne, the demon king decides that the moment has come to increase his own power personally. With no demonic energy points to use, Berje needs to urgently find another way to grow stronger. The solution is the spiritual flower, a natural mana crystal that guarantees an immense increase in strength to the user. In the Ergest Mountains, untouched and full of monsters, these flowers absorb natural mana for long years. With energy refined by time, the place becomes a true treasure filled with these precious flowers. Even though it is less effective than demonic energy, Berje decides to leave immediately to seek these flowers. Gordon warns about the great risk of going unprepared, since the monsters will attack at the slightest sign of an opening. Berje assures that he will deal with the beasts, but admits that finding the flowers will be difficult without a mana detector. Suddenly, knocks on the door interrupt the conversation, surprising both with a very unexpected visit. The door opens slowly and a blonde girl peeks in, asking innocently if the two are very busy. The sudden interruption catches the pair completely off guard, making both turn with looks of astonishment. Soon they go out into the snow, with the girl excitedly celebrating the chance to accompany the king on this new journey. She admits her recent boredom and demands an old promise, to be able to decorate the entire fourth floor however she wants. Berje accepts the deal in exchange for the flowers, but deep down he fears how exaggerated this girl's decoration will be. Just thinking about decorating the tower of a demon king is already madness, but she seems relieved for having secured this. Suddenly, our boy grabs her, the girl blushes and realizes that the moment of departure has arrived. Berje holds her in his arms and opens his black wings, warning her to hold on before she can even react. With a cry of fright, they shoot straight into the sky, tearing through the clouds at an incredible speed. The force of the wind makes her close her eyes tightly, until she gathers the courage to peek at the world from above. When she opens her eyes, she finally contemplates the view that the darkness of the kidnapping stole from her. Flying over the mountains over the sunset, she realizes how vast the world really is down below. She recalls her monotonous past, a cycle of studies and training that seemed to have no end. Excited, she comments about the unprecedented flight, but Berje cuts her off with his cold indifference. Ignoring the coldness, she introduces herself as Ernan, insisting that they address each other by name now. Berje holds her in the air to remind her who is in charge, threatening her with prison if she abuses it too much. With the fright over, she sends her elemental spirits to hunt for the flowers in the snow. The Demon King calculates that even taking time, the spirits will be faster than the two of them. To everyone's surprise, the warning arrives quickly. One of the spirits found the desired target. In the middle of the snow, the spiritual flower shines intensely, exhaling its powerful blue mana. But the dispute for the flower had already begun, with a pack of huge monsters surrounding the treasure. Landing with authority, Berje orders the creatures to retreat if they still have demonic honor. However, the beasts ignore any hierarchy, refusing the order and declaring a sentence of death. The king smiles when he realizes that Gordon was right. Expecting intelligence from beasts is pure illusion. Summoning purple flames in his hands, he decides that the only language they will understand is violence. The monsters do not retreat and advance in fury, shouting to kill and devour the intruders in the snow. Without hesitation, Berje concentrates a sphere of dark energy, ready to release his full power. A pillar of magical fire descends from the skies, incinerating the creatures in an explosion of pure agony. While their bodies burn, the remaining monsters change targets, seeking a weaker link. Ignoring the king, two of them advance against Ernan, who suddenly finds herself as the prey this time. Extending his hand toward her, Berje concentrates a dense sphere of black magic, ready for the massacre. The energy explodes into a dark vortex, protecting the pair while tearing apart the monsters around them. Ernan watches in awe, realizing that not even the fearsome orcs can break through his barrier of power. Berje crosses his arms firmly, feeling the magic flow as he tests the true extent of his current strength. The Demon King's power manifests as beasts of energy, which devour and obliterate the enemy army. When the storm ceases, silence reigns on the mountain, with the snow covering the frozen remains of the beasts. At the center of the chaos, Ernan finds the prize intact, a hyacinth, a rare spiritual flower of the ice attribute. Noticing the girl's covetous look, Berje coldly warns that item is his, leaving her disappointed. He proposes a deal. If she finds another one, she may keep it, which instantly renews her spirits. Unfortunately, despite all the girl's exhausting effort, they fly away without finding any other trace. Back at the isolated tower of Berje, silence reigns while new plans are drawn inside. Observing the blue flower in his hand, Berje reflects on Princess Ernan, whose usefulness seemed to be a mistake. Seeing her sleeping peacefully among her spirits, he realizes that the girl can be much more useful than he had foreseen. The reflection is interrupted by Gordon, who brings urgent news from Granada, surprising the king with the speed. The report confirms that hero Hillen and his group left the capital, but curiously diverted from the mountains. They chose the classic route of evolution, carrying out local missions to gain strength before the greater challenge. Gordon, always efficient, presents holograms with several detailed plans to interfere in their journey. To the total shock of his assistant, Berje coldly discards all the schemes, throwing the work in the trash. With a sly smile, the king decrees the new strategy: no monsters or interruptions on the hero's path. He says that weak attacks would only strengthen them. The order now is to infiltrate among the mercenaries and gain their trust. Gordon fears that the current tower will not endure, but Berje promises an immediate and effective reinforcement for the defense. The Demon King smiles and reveals the key piece of this new plan: he will bring a dwarf into the fortress. Gordon goes into total panic, shouting that the tower will become a joke if it has a dwarf living inside. Berje ignores Gordon's hysterical screams, maintaining his firm posture and his gaze focused on his objective. Seeing that his dramatic protests have no effect, the assistant only grumbles and accepts defeat. Berje explains that the real focus is not the dwarf, but the destructive power of his magical tools. He describes the shock of the heroes when they are received by dozens of cannons instead of weak monsters. Gordon finally understands the strategy, realizing that no hero would be ready for such artillery. Even so, the elf shakes his head in denial, unable to accept such a break from the old rules. But when he raises his eyes to continue the debate, he realizes that the king has already disappeared, leaving him alone. Gordon completely loses it, realizing that his master plans another insane kidnapping for the tower. The scene shifts to Wolfner, the underground city of the dwarves, where the sound of hammers echoes without stopping. Amid the hot sparks, the blacksmiths work tirelessly forging metals in the intense heat. Lozier Friedrich, the best dwarf blacksmith, barely knows that his fate will change by the hands of a demon king. In the depths of the city, hooded figures walk through the guarded stone streets of the dwarf capital. Berje observes the architecture, remembering how many times he fought against against dwarves in his past life. He heads to a local tavern called Midnight Inn, seeking information in the underworld. At the counter, he slides gold coins and directly asks where to find the best blacksmith in the city. The attendant smiles with the typical greed of his race, praising the direct way the human negotiates. He points the way to the center, describing an elevator with double security to identify intruders. Ignoring the gate's security, he slips into the restricted area with the stealth of a shadow. Falling through the long elevator shaft, he lands silently in the dark depths of the city. Guided by the rhythmic sound of heavy hammering, he advances to the deepest room of the lower floor. Opening the entrance doors, Berje peers at the origin of the intense noise with a calculating look. The heat is suffocating, with enormous flames dancing around the forge where the legendary work takes place. There is Lozier Friedrich, the master blacksmith, striking the hot metal with absolute focus and brute strength. Observing the sparks, Berje notes with amazement that mana itself seems to dance with each blow given. Decided to act quickly, he extends his hand to capture the dwarf silently before anyone notices anything. But suddenly, a massive explosion of fire erupts from the anvil, forcing the Demon King to protect himself. The dwarf attacks at once, having sensed the tiny trace of demonic energy hidden in the intruder there. Berje widens his eyes upon feeling the aura, realizing that the dwarf is not an ordinary blacksmith but something much greater. The hammer comes down with brutal violence, creating an explosion of energy that lights up the entire forge. Amid the flames of the impact, Berje confirms his suspicion that blacksmith does not only forge, he is a hero. Lozier roars in fury, confirming that he possesses the power of heroes and swearing that the intruder will not leave there alive. With a mocking smile, Berje scoffs at the strength of the blow and corrects the dwarf, warning that he is not a demon. Releasing his royal aura, he knocks the dwarf out in an instant and carries him, declaring himself to be the Demon King himself. The legendary hammer falls onto the cold ground with a dull thud, left behind as its master is kidnapped. Dwarf guards invade the place armed and confused, alerted by the crash and shouting the master's name. Before the empty and destroyed forge, panic sets in. They realize in horror that Lozier vanished without a trace. The alarm sounds throughout the city. With the dwarf on his back, the king flees through the shadows as chaos spreads. Berje threatens to kill him if he makes noise, but the dwarf, confused, asks if he came after the princess. Lozier reveals that there is a secret underground passage for emergencies, and Berje demands to be guided. The blacksmith trembles with fear, mentally cursing his cowardice and certain that the target is the girl. Tears run down his eyes as he laments his fate, revealing himself to be a pathetically weak hero. Berje smiles maliciously and proposes a cruel trade. He will kidnap the princess and leave the dwarf free. The dwarf widens his eyes, shocked by the absurd proposal, trying to understand the king's evil scheme. The king describes the rumor he will spread, the selfish hero who sold the princess to save his own skin. Panic consumes Lozier, who screams desperately in the face of the cruelty and vileness of that terrible plan. He knows that, because he is weak, everyone would believe in the betrayal, condemning him to an eternal life of torture. Cornered, the dwarf does not hesitate for even a second. He chooses to hand over the princess to rid himself of the torment. Berje whispers a solemn promise, swearing by the honor of the Demon Kings to guarantee his total safety. Lozier knows that this rule is sacred to them, an unbreakable faith that guarantees the absolute truth of the oath. With the guarantee of life, the blacksmith makes his final decision, closing his eyes tightly to accept fate. Changing posture instantly, the dwarf guides the way with enthusiasm, leaving the king disgusted by the attitude. Meanwhile, in the empty workshop, the guards stare at the silence left behind by the missing master blacksmith. Princess Louise arrives at the place with teary eyes, calling the blacksmith's name with deep anguish. The dwarf princess refuses to believe in the disappearance, because he was forging her personal weapon when everything happened. Furious, she yells at the guards, rejecting the idea of a kidnapping, for a hero would never be taken like that. A guard reminds that, despite the title, Lozier is a blacksmith and terrible in combat. Ignoring logic, Louise orders at the top of her lungs that they bring the kidnapper and recover the dwarf immediately. Princess Louise explodes in fury, with eyes on fire, threatening to tear off the heads of the useless guards. Far from there, the pair crawls with difficulty through the secret and tight tunnel that the cowardly dwarf used to escape. The space is so tiny that Berje is forced to face the dwarfs but swaying right in front of him. Irritated by the grotesque sight, the king demands haste, while the dwarf breaks into a cold sweat and promises that the end is near. Finally, they emerge from the hole in the ground, with the imposing dwarf tower shining under the moonlight ahead. The dwarf throws himself on the ground and says that his part is over, believing that he is free to leave as promised. But a dark aura surrounds the king and the dwarf stammers in panic, demanding the sacred vow of safety they made. With a cruel smile, Berje mocks the honor of demons, calling the sacred oath irrelevant trash. Lozier screams in absolute despair, shocked to realize that this demon king follows no rule or honor at all. Cornered by the dark claw, the dwarf bitterly regrets not having betrayed the princess from the beginning. The dwarf crawls and begs, offering his services as a blacksmith to create any weapon the king desires. Desperate to live, he promises to be a loyal spy, swearing loyalty while trembling before the demon. Berje accepts the offer of servitude. The dwarf celebrates loudly, thanking for the mercy granted to him. But inside, Lozier laughs at the king's naivety, planning to betray him and bring an army as soon as he escapes. His eyes shine with restrained malice, swearing that the demon will pay dearly for humiliating a great dwarf hero. But when they arrive at the king's tower, the dwarf becomes confused by what he sees, for he is surrounded by several spirits and a strange soft light. They are on the 4th floor of the tower. The place is a beautiful garden, where Gordon and the princess await their arrival. Gordon panics upon seeing the dwarf, shouting about the danger of bringing a hero into the fortress. Berje orders the elf to shut up while receiving a magical report, ignoring Gordon's dramatic fit. Princess Ernan looks at the dwarf with contempt, asking if he came to save her, already knowing that the answer is no. Lozier demands his freedom, but Berje retorts that he promised only his life, not that he would let him go. Berje explains that he knocked him out purely as a precaution, to avoid any escape or betrayal during the long journey. The dwarf begins to laugh in a strange and broken way, seeming that his mind has finally given in the face of so much fear. The laughter turns into a manic cackle, with wide eyes reflecting the total madness of that tense moment. He laughs loudly in the garden, while the others watch that bizarre scene of mental collapse with indifference. Berje smiles satisfied and asks, mockingly, if he is that happy about becoming his new loyal subordinate. With tears of fear and a forced smile, Lozier agrees, completely broken and submissive to the demon's will. Berje praises his positive attitude and immediately gives him his first mission, while the dwarf cries on the ground. The king orders cannons to be created on the 1st floor, revealing his plan to destroy the heroes with heavy artillery, but leaving that place and going to the preparation station, where the group of heroes rests before proceeding. The elf analyzes the recent rumors, noting that the demon king uses black flames, which change the heroes' tactics. He passes the report to our boy, and says that their conclusion was that the lack of monsters is seen as fear on the part of the demon king. And our boy says that without monsters to kill, the heroes gain no honor or wealth, stagnating their growth and losing interest. The strategy is a battle against time. The elf receives orders to keep constant watch over the target. The elf realizes the genius, weakening the heroes through boredom, proving that the king knows the human mind well. Walking toward the hall, he admits he has never seen a king like this and thanks the gods for not being his enemy. Back at the tower, Berje imposes a severe rule on the dwarf. The renovation of the floor cannot use any mana stone. The dwarf protests, claiming that traps without mana are useless, but Berje demands that he use his creativity. Berje explains that heroes sense magic easily, so any magical trap would be detected ahead of time. Lozier panics, breaking into a cold sweat when he realizes he will have to create lethal weapons using only physical engineering. Berje threatens, saying that if the dwarf is not useful, he will seek another, which implies Lozier's immediate death. The dwarf goes into total panic and shouts that there is a solution, desperate to avoid being discarded by the king. He reveals that he invented a magical item capable of hiding traces of mana, the perfect solution for defense. Suspicious, Berje questions whether this is not just a flimsy excuse invented only so he can escape. Lozier cries and trembles, swearing on his own life that he is telling the truth and that the item really exists in the workshop. Berje accepts the proposal but fastens something cold around the dwarf's neck, who asks in fright what that is. The king calmly explains that it is a magical device capable of tearing off his head with a single command. In addition, the item hides his face. If he removes it, the death sentence will be carried out instantly. Together, they travel through several distant kingdoms, collecting vital supplies for the construction of the defenses. After an entire month of exhausting collection, Berje stores everything in his dimensional pocket and returns to the tower. Berje and the dwarf finally return to Wolfner after the long journey of collecting materials for the tower's defense. The scene shifts to chaos in the dwarf city, where guards are struck by debris from the princess's fury. Louise shouts furiously at the guards, indignant that they have not found Lozier after a month and a half of searches. The soldiers try to explain, saying that the mining tunnels are too vast to be searched. The princess explodes in anger, calling them stupid for thinking that the kidnapper would still be there. She grabs the guard's head and gives a fatal ultimatum: 2 weeks to find the dwarf or they all die. Shouting, she orders all tunnels to be sealed, making the soldiers run in desperation out of fear of her. Alone in the large empty hall, Princess Louise observes the raw ores scattered across the stone floor. Her gaze falls on an unfinished black blade on the ground, the weapon Lozier was forging before disappearing. With a manic look, she prays for his life, not out of affection, but only so that he can finish her weapon. The princess hears a noise and turns abruptly, catching the the exact moment when the pair emerges from the ground. Her eyes fix on the masked intruder. Her intuition screams that something very familiar has just appeared. The dwarf breaks into a cold sweat under the magical mask, praying that the disguise protects his identity from her fury. Louise reasons quickly that tunnel is secret and exclusive to him, which leads to a single obvious conclusion. With frightening certainty, she shouts his name, making the poor blacksmith shrink in fear inside the hole. The mask system confirms its functioning, but the dwarf knows that no magic deceives her instinct. She snaps her fingers hard, laughing maniacally as she concludes that he returned of his own free will. The princess accuses him of running away to avoid working, emanating a murderous aura that promises pain and suffering. Lozier cries desperately, trying to explain that everything is a misunderstanding, but his words fall on deaf ears. Furious, she ignores everything and decrees, from now on he will be her eternal slave in her weapon forge. Louise gathers power and shouts that she will punish the dwarf for the escape, while he begs for mercy trembling on the cold ground. An explosion of energy devastates the place, destroying the hideout with a crash that echoes throughout the entire hall. Amid the dust, Louise appears furious, demanding to know who the intruder is who dares to challenge her royal authority. Berje steps firmly on the ground, not intimidated by the murderous aura. The king orders Lozier to fetch the equipment. The dwarf promptly obeys and runs desperately away from the fight. Wrapped in aura and red with rage, the princess questions why he would help such a despicable and pathetic dwarf. Berje declares himself the blacksmith's master, assuming total possession over the dwarf whom she exploited and extorted so much. Louise screams that Lozier is her eternal slave and advances with full fury to kill the insolent thief who took him. She strikes with swift blows, questioning who he is, while Berje dodges everything with frightening calm. The Demon King maintains absolute focus, his eyes following every movement of the princess without showing any fear. Berje delivers a heavy kick to the princess to make her pass out, but the princess grabs his leg and then begins to concentrate an aura in her fist, ready to crush the intruder with a blow of brute force. The Demon King slightly widens his eyes, surprised by the explosive speed that the small dwarf proves to have. The impact of the punch creates a devastating shockwave, sending our boy flying toward the wall. From above, Berje counterattacks with black magic, forcing the princess to interrupt her offensive and defend herself at once. The two collide violently, exchanging rapid blows that make the air vibrate with the intensity of the combat. Louise Werft, the second princess, is not a heroine, but her raw physical strength rivals that of royal monsters. Berje recalls the past. Before the regression, that dwarf was a legendary warrior who massacred armies. He knows that he could kill her now, but that would require spending all his current demonic energy in the middle of the fight. Moreover, the excessive use of power would attract the entire army, confirming his identity as the Demon King. Lozier works frantically to dismantle the machine, while the chaos of the battle explodes around him. Berje lands and demands results. The terrified dwarf warns that he is still in the process of dismantling it. The target is the Mana Phantom, a colossal machine that must be dismantled quickly to fit into the pocket. Berje stares with fury and gives the final ultimatum: 1 minute to finish everything or the dwarf will die right there. Louise attacks from above with full fury. Lozier screams in panic while the princess tries to stop their escape. Our boy prepares to defend the blow, worried, because without his full power, holding back the princess's fury is an immense challenge. The energies collide violently, making the entire structure shake hard. Louise punches with hatred, swearing to break Lozier's legs to ensure that he will never run away from her again. Berje mocks her cruelty and reaffirms that he will take the blacksmith and the equipment no matter the cost. Smoke comes out of the machine's gears. The dismantling process advances, signaling the imminent escape from there. The dwarf shouts that he is finished and says that it is ready to be taken, while our boy keeps the princess occupied. Louise realizes the theft and explodes in fury. Wrapped in flames, she swears that she will not let them take her treasure. Berje sees the distraction created by her rage. His eyes narrow, identifying the fatal opening in her defense. With precision, he delivers a kick to the princess's stomach, throwing her backward. The thunderous impact raises a cloud of dust and rubble, creating the visual barrier needed to escape. Berje activates his dimensional pocket. He orders Lozier to move aside while he sucks in all the machinery. Louise emerges from the rubble intact, roaring that weak physical attack is useless against her steel skin. She lands on the spot, but it is too late. Where the giant machine was, only emptiness and dust remain. The guards arrive and Louise insults them for the delay. She asks if they plan to arrive only after the funeral. Pointing to the escape tunnel, the princess orders immediate pursuit, plunging into the hunt with pure hatred. Facing the sealed tunnel, Louise wonders if the dwarf hates her so much that he fled just to avoid forging. An obsessive smile appears on her face. The fury turns into sick interest in the audacity of that fugitive. Laughing loudly, she swears to turn the entire continent upside down personally until she finds the cursed traitor. Her eye shines with intense magic madness, engraving Lozier's name into her soul while she promises to hunt him forever. Far from there, in the king's tower, heavy chains and gears turn while the stolen machine is reborn. On the first floor of the tower, the mana phantom rises imposingly, now assembled and ready for use. Berje presents the machine to his confused servants, explaining that it is the key to stopping heroes. With the installation completed in record time, the king orders the dwarf to activate the device immediately. Under threat of death if he fails, the trembling blacksmith pulls the lever to start the machine's operation. The core spins at full force, emitting an intense blue glow while magic begins to cover the tower. The intense light blinds everyone, while the machine releases a pure energy that floods the tower's entire main hall. The system awakens, recognizing the machine and demanding 10,000 points to perform the complete synchronization. Our boy stares at the screen in shock, not knowing that the tower possessed such an advanced hidden synchronization function. Without hesitation, Berje confirms the command and spends his points, paying the price to fuse the machine with his tower. The core changes color, converting all mana into demonic energy under the absolute command of its new master. The dwarf goes into a frenzy of excitement, shouting that this fusion of energy is the greatest discovery of the century for magic. Wanting to test the power, Berje turns to Princess Ernan and asks her to use any magic she desires there. Excited, Ernan releases a whirlwind of elements, creating absolute magical chaos of fire and water in the hall. Gordon falls into despair, screaming in horror when he sees the tower's impeccable cleanliness being ruined at that moment. While the elf begs them to stop, our boy notices that the tower withstands all that destructive power without collapsing. The king steps onto the snow and analyzes the situation, noting that normally the tower's aura would be easy to notice. But standing before the imposing entrance, he confirms that the magical camouflage works perfectly. Berje is shocked to realize that he cannot feel any presence or mana coming from inside it. Curious, he touches the cold structure and decides to test control, injecting energy to manipulate everything. The connection is immediate. He feels the tower respond to his mental command in a surprising way. Before his eyes, the gigantic stone structure simply disappears into the air, becoming invisible. With a simple movement of his hand, he dispels the concealment magic to bring his fortress back. The illusion fades and the imposing tower materializes again in the frozen mountain landscape. The cost is high. He notices that his energy points drop drastically, almost emptying the reserve. Despite the absurd expense, Berje smiles confidently, knowing that this trump card will be vital for the future. The dwarf Lozier completely loses his composure, begging to dismantle and study that incredible magical fusion. He throws himself toward the machine, fascinated by a technology that never existed in the history of that world. Berje makes a deal. If Lozier defeats the heroes on the first floor, he may study the tower as much as he wants. While the dwarf runs off happily to work, the king turns to the princess and offers her a defense mission. He wants her to fight on the fourth floor. Ernan hesitates, remembering that she is a princess and not a warrior. Berje thinks that perhaps he went too far, fearing that betraying her own race might be too heavy for her now. But the concern is useless. Ernan feels no guilt, she is only undecided about which element to use. The king eases the tension and asks only that she confuse the heroes, promising more rewards if she does well. The girl accepts with a strange condition. She wants to be introduced as the demon's subordinate, not as a princess. Confused by the unusual request, Berje immediately agrees, making the girl celebrate her new identity. Ernan suggests seducing the heroes with her beauty, but Berje refuses and orders her to follow only his plan. In the Great Hall, Berje monitors the screens, adjusting the final details of the fortress's defense. The plan is simple: mana cannons on the ground floor to weaken them and the princess as bait for the strike at the top. However, his calculations show that this will not be enough to stop the horde of 200 heroes approaching. Staring at the contaminated flower, he decides that his own strength needs to increase and leaves to seek more of them. They depart into the snow. Ernan shouts with joy, excited to leave the tower, while the king remains focused. But the excitement turns into frustration when they search the area and find no trace of the flowers. Berje finds the emptiness strange, realizing that finding that first flower was a stroke of luck difficult to repeat. The mountain's silence is broken. Heavy footsteps approach and a huge shadow covers the pair in the snow. A gigantic foot crushes the ground with brutal force, revealing that they are not alone in that vastness. Krutu, the chief of the Blue Frost tribe, kneels in the snow and offers total loyalty to the Demon King. The entire clan prostrates itself in the cold snow, begging to be accepted as his new family. Berje faces the request coldly, questioning whether they truly understand the weight of serving a demon. Krutu reveals that they bear the sin of an ancient betrayal and seek to recover their lost honor by serving serving him well. Berje interrupts the noble speech, stating that their real desire is merely to obtain demonic power. The orc smiles at being exposed and accepts the truth, revealing that there is no longer any reason to hesitate now. The chest opens and reveals the great prize, several spiritual flowers shining with intense and vivid colors. Berje praises the orc's intelligence, realizing that they stockpiled the flowers he had been seeking so much. Krudu explains that they prioritize wisdom, but Berje notes that they came to him out of weakness and strength. The warrior lowers his head in silence, forced to admit that cunning is not enough to protect them. Berje laughs softly, finding it amusing to hear about wisdom coming from a race known for brute strength. With a smile of approval, he activates a magic circle, sealing the blood pact with the orc. But the king makes a crucial reservation. He will accept only Krudu's loyalty directly at this moment. He marks the orc's chest with magic and orders the clan to grow and dominate the snowfields in his name. Berje promises a future reward superior to physical strength, demanding that they await his orders. Krudu feels his vital energy change, now evolved and officially marked as a relative of the demon. The orc leader bows deeply in the snow, shouting his gratitude and swearing to serve the king until death. Following the leader's example, hundreds of orcs prostrate themselves, offering their lives in a single shout. In the Ergest Mountains, Berje's tower now operates at full power, ready for any invasion. Outside, the Pearl Orc Legion stands guard, creating a living wall around the fortress. On the first floor, Lozier poses proudly before 60 mana cannons ready for brutal massacre. On the fourth floor, Princess Ernan prepares her elemental spirits in a beautiful, illusory, and deadly garden. From the throne, Berje monitors the screens, confirming that all the pieces of the game are in position. With a vengeful look, the king challenges the heroes, swearing to repay all the humiliation of his past life. And in the snowy and silent forest, where calm precedes the storm that approaches, Hero Hillen smiles upon arriving in the territory, not knowing that he is walking straight into a real trap. The army of heroes contemplates the imposing Ergest Mountains, the final stage where their fate will be sealed. And going there to the hero's journey preparation station in Holton Walk, where everything seems to be ready now. Inside the Great Hall, the atmosphere is festive and there is a lot of conversation among all the warriors present at the banquet. The hero thanks them for the banquet and the master says that it is an honor to be by his side on a page of history. The master suggests that Hillen make a speech to motivate everyone, and he ends up accepting his request. With enthusiasm, the master asks for everyone's attention, announcing that Hillen would like to say a few words. Everyone in the hall stops what they are doing and looks at the hero with great admiration and expectation for the speech. Hillen clears his throat to begin speaking, feeling the weight of responsibility before so many soldiers. He greets his companions, saying that the journey has finally reached its final stretch. Hillen says that the Demon King must be scared, but warns that they must never let their guard down. He raises his cup and declares that tomorrow the villain will pay for having kidnapped Princess Ernan of Hildren. Hillen shouts asking who they are and who is the master of this world so that everyone remembers. The crowd responds with fervor, shouting repeatedly for justice while they celebrate with their hero. Everyone begins to eat and drink, while it is noticed that the number of heroes has remained the same until now. Hillen's popularity brought the journey this far, guaranteeing support and keeping the mercenaries united. Granada remembers that the tower was empty and wonders if he should slap these heroes on the back of the head. He despairs at his own thoughts, remembering that victory is the only path to his freedom. Granada tries to control himself and decides to go out to get some air and finally make his report to him. Already in Holton, he informs that they will climb the mountain tomorrow after resupplying and receives new orders. The protagonist warns them to be careful with the snow and not to let their guard down during the night in that region. He orders that they stay away from the tower when it opens, leaving Granada confused by this sudden warning. Hillen finds Granada alone on the balcony and asks what he is doing there, frightening the elf who tries to hide his nervousness. The hero offers a cup of fruit wine, saying it is the elf's favorite, and Granada accepts, thanking him for the gesture. Noticing the tension, Hillen comments that his friend seems worried, and Granada asks if they will really be able to defeat the Demon King. Hillen laughs asking if he is nervous too, but soon looks at his own reflection in the wine and honestly admits that he does not know either. Observing the night landscape, Hillen confesses that despite everyone's confidence, subjugating a tower is always hellish and never happens without problems. Granada finds it strange and remembers that Hillen killed the Demon King of Lust and absorbed his power, which should make the new enemy easy to defeat. The elf comments that no one knows the details of this feat and asks, in a joking tone, for Hillen to tell the heroic story of that battle. Faced with the question, Hillen's face grows dark and he remains silent for a moment, ignoring the request. Suddenly cheerful, he smiles and says that he only won thanks to brave companions like Granada, who always take care of the monsters on the front line of battle. Hillen puts his hand on his friend's shoulder with confidence, saying that he will lead the way and asking Granada to protect his rear. Encouraged by the leader's words, Granada smiles with determination and promises to fulfill exactly that role. Hillen suggests that they go back inside, warning that the master of the fortress is eager to hear the elf's adventure stories. The two return to the hall, with Granada following his leader without noticing the change in his expression. Away from prying eyes, Hillen kisses his ring with a sadistic smile, thinking about how he will use the brave elf as a piece in his game again. Morning arrives, illuminating the great fortress city, marking the moment of the troops' departure. The army marches out through the gates under the shouts of the crowd, who call out the names of Granada, Wharton, and Hillen Cargill. The troops enter the imposing throat of the Ergest Mountains, surrounded by snow-covered peaks and ice. The soldiers comment with relief about the clear weather and the little snow, believing that the goddess of victory is on their side. They laugh at the absence of disaster-level monsters, joking that the creatures must be hibernating or afraid of Hillen. Suddenly, the laughter is interrupted when something of a mysterious purple color appears above the head of one of the soldiers who was mocking. Suddenly, something slimy drips from above. He touches that purple substance on his face, completely confused. Terror is immediate when he looks up. Dozens of gigantic ghouls descend from the cliffs now. The enemies finally show themselves. The commander does not hesitate and shouts for them to form the battle line. Chaos reigns in the short canyon. The order is not to panic, to protect the mages and to retreat quickly. The situation worsens when an ice giant appears in front. Hillen warns and the leader orders everyone to retreat. The skeletal monstrosity rises, huge and terrifying, completely blocking the path. Determined, the leader orders Wharton to flee with the others. He assures that he will take care of the beast alone. The giant attacks with brutal force, but he does not retreat. He jumps straight into the blow, ready for the fight. The red eyes of the giant's skull shine with murderous instinct, focused on crushing the opponent. The giant skeletal monster attacks, but the knight in the blue cloak does not retreat before that colossal threat. With impressive agility, the hero moves fast, dodging the devastating attack that comes from above. The impact of the creature's blow destroys the ground, raising stones and dust, but the target was no longer there. Taking advantage of the opening, he runs up the monster's own structure, wrapped in an electric aura. He concentrates all his energy into the blade, preparing a decisive strike while advancing with determination. His eyes shine with intensity as he perceives the perfect moment. It is now or never to finish this. With a fluid movement, he releases a transverse cut of energy, slicing the gigantic enemy. The warrior shouts urgently, ordering everyone to take advantage of the chance and run to save their lives. The soldiers run desperately, shouting to cover the rear while the path is still accessible. Behind them, the beast's skull begins to fall apart in flames, defeated by the overwhelming power of the hero. The final explosion shakes the entire mountain, raising a cloud of snow that covers the battlefield. In the icy silence that follows, the warriors try to catch their breath, exhausted after the deadly combat. They discuss the absurdity of the battle, admitting that without Hillen's help, the massacre would have been inevitable. Observing the hero from afar, the soldiers speculate whether his power no longer surpasses that of a demon king himself. The elf watches with a serious look, considering that, if it is Hillen, perhaps the impossible is within his reach. A flame of hope arises. Perhaps that warrior is the only one capable of defeating the true enemy, but the rest is short-lived. From the top of the slope, a new threat appears, watching the group with bloodlust. The hero feels the demonic energy approaching and warns the group, there will be no time to rest now. A blue-skinned demon with enormous fangs reveals itself, sarcastically welcoming the foolish heroes. Confident, he prepares to end everything quickly, but the elf notices something strange in that sound. But at that moment, Granada remembers his master and the enigmatic warning for him to watch the snow. Granada is shocked, realizing too late what the warning meant. The blue-skinned beast shows its fangs, growling that none, absolutely none of them will leave that place alive. With a sadistic smile on his face, the protagonist completes the sentence saying that no one will reach the tower. The ground trembles and they look up, seeing the mass of snow coming down with devastating force. In absolute panic, he desperately questions how it would be possible to protect themselves from something like that. As the snow comes down, he curses the Demon King, calling him crazy for such a disaster. Seeing no other hope of surviving, the elf shouts for everyone to run from there. From the comfort of his throne, our boy watches through the screens the panic and destruction. With a sarcastic smile on his face, he welcomes the heroes once again into his territory. This time, the threat is clear in his eyes. He promises to hunt each one of them mercilessly. In the white vastness, the survivors notice that the orcs caused the avalanche, separating the entire group. The blonde leader takes command, shouting for them to set up camp and search for the lost heroes. The darkness brings the second cruel warning. reminding them that they should never let their guard down during the night. Ice giants and ghouls appear, guided by the orcs, forcing everyone to prepare for battle. The elf, surrounded and furious, curses the Demon King, feeling the weight of that cursed trap. Our tough one smiles as he describes the infernal cycle, avalanche by day and monsters at night, repeating endlessly. Heavy breathing and physical exhaustion take over, gradually breaking the hero's resistance. After 3 arduous days, half of the army perished. At the summit, the hero stops, stunned by the emptiness ahead. They expected the Demon King's tower, but the peak is deserted. The absence of the expected target confuses the warriors. The leader loses his composure, shouting in anger. It makes no sense for the tower not to be in a location visible to all. Despair breaks loyalty. Wharton announces the division of the group, informing that many decided to give up. Hillen stares at the subordinate, incredulous. The sudden betrayal of someone he trusted is a hard blow to take. Wharton seals the fate of the mission coldly. Their lives matter more than a heroic journey that has already failed. Left behind, Hillen only grinds his teeth. Fury boils, but there is nothing to be done against the desertion. On the 6th day, the survivors sight the target. The tower was hidden in a basin, far from common view. The gates open and they attack with arrogance. They firmly believe that the beginning will only have weak enemies, but a cruel smile appears on our boy's face. The rule was clear: when opening the tower, stay well away. Mana cannons fire simultaneously. The intense blue glow illuminates the darkness, surprising everyone. Hillen's eyes widen, paralyzed. The magnitude of the attack catches him off guard, leaving him without reaction. The devastating beam consumes everything in its path. In a single instant, the army of 50 is reduced to 1. The Demon King smiles when he sees the result. Even with such power, he notices that the annihilation was not total. Hillen emerges among the rubble, panting. He is the only one left, kneeling and confused by the massacre. He screams, his mind in turmoil. Nothing in that tower follows the rules he knew, and the chaos enrages him. A familiar voice breaks the silence. Granada appears alive, having escaped the fatal attack by a hair. Hillen does not waste time with relief. He orders the immediate advance, ignoring his companion's hesitation. The hero's aura ignites with vigor. Confident in his legend, he assures that no new king will stop him. With renewed determination, the duo advances. Hillen leads the way, certain that his strength will be enough. The adventurers move forward cautiously, but find the 2nd floor of the tower completely empty and silent. When they go up to the 3rd floor, the strange situation repeats itself, with deserted corridors and no enemies. The warrior finds the silence strange because the place should be full of monsters, but there is no one nearby. If the previous floors are empty, something is very wrong, and he feels that anything can appear now. Arriving at the 4th floor of Berje Tower, the scenery changes drastically to a very calm flower field. The warrior is incredulous when he sees a blue sky and butterflies, questioning what the hell that beautiful place is. He curses, confused by the sudden forest, doubting whether they are really in the tower of a terrible Demon King. Suddenly, footsteps echo and a female voice mocks, surprised that they managed to climb and reach there. The warrior turns quickly, shocked to realize the presence of someone approaching stealthily from behind. An exotic figure appears, declaring herself to be one of the 4 heavenly kings who protect the terrible Demon King. She adjusts her glasses and introduces herself as the dark spiritualist, ready to be the opponent of the invaders. While she strikes a dramatic pose with her spirits, the elf beside him questions what the hell that scene is. The shock is immediate when he recognizes the girl, ignoring the threat and shouting the name Princess Ernan. While the elf tries to retreat quietly, the warrior can only think about the reason for that strange appearance. The girl panics and denies her identity, nervously insisting that she is only the terrible spiritualist. To prove that she is a villain, she releases a powerful elemental magic, attacking the heroes with full force. The warrior recognizes that such high-level magic could only be cast by the true Princess Ernan. He recalls all the madness they faced, from orcs and avalanches to finding the princess as an enemy. The situation is so absurd and senseless that the hero only lets out an incredulous laugh in the face of the confusion. Frustration explodes. If the princess wants to fight those who came to save her, he decides to destroy everything at once. A dark voice challenges his power, as the presence of the Demon King begins to manifest on the battlefield. An overwhelming explosion of dark energy consumes the place, marking the arrival of a devastating power. From the midst of smoke and dust, the Demon King emerges, walking surrounded by aura, calling the hero by his real name. The hero faces the final villain, aware that he will need much more strength to win that deadly battle. At that moment, the hero looks for his companion. He looks around and finds him behind the demon. While our boy advances, the hero quickly leaves his field of vision. Then the knight grabs him and says, "Granada, let's combine our strength." The elf, confused and in panic, stammers, "What?" Terror takes over his face. Granada feels his life being drained. "My energy, leaving my body. With the elf fallen at his feet, the knight smiles confidently. I said, while you are with me there is no problem. Observing the cruel scene, the demon immediately recognizes the object in his hand and murmurs, that artifact is. The man reveals the insane truth, it is the forbidden elf devourer. It converts the infinite vitality of elves into mana. Stepping on the victim, he justifies himself and says that the problem with this item is that the elf dies when using it, but you accept it, right Granada? It is all for the greater good. On the ground, betrayed and weak, the elf whispers his last words with pure contempt. You swindler, hypocrite. The demon laughs loudly, loving the human wickedness exposed there. I like how vile and low you are. The demon smiles and asks if, by removing that ring, he would become weak again, leaving the man confused. The hero laughs loudly, calling him an idiot and stating that not even the demon king of lust managed to remove the ring. But the mood changes when the demon king calls for Gordon. At that moment the hero freezes, feeling that something is missing. His mocking expression instantly disappears, giving way to a face of pure terror and confusion. He screams when he sees his severed hand, in shock for not having felt the enemy's presence before the attack. Behind him, Gordon appears, commenting coldly on how humans are rude and noisy. Upon noticing the presence of this other demon, the hero quickly moves away from him. The hero manages to retreat, but is incredulous at having been defeated by a high-ranking demon, even using his artifact. Trying to process the pain, he feels a heavy hand land on his shoulder, stopping any chance of escape. The demon king at that moment appears behind him with a terrible look, assuring that he is not going anywhere. He realizes too late that blocking is impossible and that his only chance to survive is to try to dodge. The enemy's aura takes the form of a gigantic dragon, paralyzing his body with absolute and fatal fear. An overwhelming energy concentrates in his hand, making the hero question the true identity of that demon king. The demon's cruel smile is the last thing he sees as that ball of energy descends loaded with destructive power. He declares that the time for the beating has come, pronouncing the name Hillen Cargill as a sentence of pain and death. Terror takes over his face, for he knows that there is no defense capable of stopping what is coming now. The impact is brutal because the energy of this attack can even be seen outside the tower. When the dust settles, silence reigns. The human lies defeated on the ground while his opponent remains standing. The demon lets out a deep sigh, seeming bored or perhaps disappointed with the enemy's fragility. He looks at the fallen body and admits to being impressed, surprised by the fact that his victim is still alive. With the battle over, the order is clear. Imprison the enemy and lock up the others who fell outside. The wounded elf, with blurred vision and a weak body, already accepts the end, believing that he glimpses the afterlife. But the demon king intervenes, delivering a reward and healing him immediately with the powerful energy of the item. The elf blinks in confusion, not understanding how the pain suddenly disappeared, trying to process reality. Astonishment takes over when he realizes that his body is wrapped in energy and completely recovered. He can hardly believe that that precious item, the spiritual flower, was used on him to save his life. The dwarf also receives his prize, the long-desired permission to dismantle the tower, celebrating with euphoria. With the situation under control, the leader orders everyone to return to their posts to restore the place. Seeing him leave, his subordinates admire his strength, noting that he seems intact after the fierce fight. The princess, however, watches thoughtfully the figure that walks away, feeling that there is something more in him. Away from prying eyes, the mask of strength falls, and the demon king collapses to the ground, completely exhausted and trembling. Lying on the carpet, he breathes with difficulty, admitting to himself how close he was to real defeat. A king cannot show weakness, but he knows that that human, Hillen Cargill, was a tenacious opponent. Hillen is one of the 10 stars, the strongest heroes on the continent, even being considered the weakest. He admits that he won by little. If the hero had been in full condition, the result would have been very different. Strategy was crucial. His plan wore down the enemy little by little, draining his strength before the end. Provoking the opponent was the next step, destabilizing his mind and making him lose total control. Panic took over the hero, clouding his judgment and leaving him vulnerable at the most decisive moment. With his vision narrowed by rage and confusion, he finally revealed the fatal opening that the demon was waiting for to attack. It was the perfect opportunity for the demon king to strike with his full blow and secure victory at that moment. He celebrates a perfect and unprecedented victory, achieved for the first time without depending on the king's patterns. Sitting on the ground, reality hits him hard. He finally managed to change his own cruel destiny. Determination shines in his eyes. He knows that he is capable of doing this and that he will change the future forever. At that moment he remembers his past life and the heroes who ended it, but now he sees the path open for his long-desired revenge. His target is already very well defined. He will unleash all his fury on those damned hypocritical heroes. Confusion reigns, for it is unbelievable to everyone that the heroes gave up just because they did not find the tower. In the kingdom, chaos prevails. Investors demand urgent agent answers and want to know who is to blame. A desperate appeal is made. There is still hope, for Hillen Cargill continues to search for the Demon King's tower. But the news flies. The rumor about the new Demon King spreads quickly across the continent. The king's fury explodes. He demands the rescue of the princess and promises the immediate execution of Hillen if he fails, and the dwarf's princess is only seeking to recover her blacksmith. The story is distorted and the world sinks into mourning, with cruel rumors claiming that the hero Hillen is already dead. Thanks to all this chaos and despair, Berge's demonic energy points begin to accumulate rapidly. At the garrison barracks, the tension is palpable. They question Wharton about whether there is any falsehood in his words. Wharton does not hesitate and swears on his own name that he spoke only the truth, maintaining his firm and serious posture. The council recognizes the gravity, but preaches total caution, since the identity of the new Demon King is a mystery. As Hillen is one of the 10 stars, they decide to wait 10 days for news before taking drastic measures. If he does not return, all the heroes of the continent will launch a total attack to eliminate the new Demon King. Meanwhile, in the depths of the underground prison of Berge's tower, the atmosphere is damp, dark, and silent. Berge watches his chained prisoner and comments, impressed, on the exceptional speed of his recovery. The prisoner stares at the Demon King and demands that he get straight to the point, knowing that he is alive for some reason. Berge smiles, satisfied with Hillen's practical attitude, and decides to make a proposal and wants the great hero to become his loyal subordinate. Hillen is surprised by the proposal and asks if the Demon King is sick in the head. Our boy throws a sack of coins in front of the hero and says that this journey must have been very expensive. He says that the cost of this journey is normally paid by merchant groups and nobles, but if the journey fails, the debts will be enormous. With a grin from ear to ear, Berge says that this time the investment was directed at only one person. He provokes even more, and the fear on Hillen's face is clearly visible, because he knows what will happen to him after leaving this place. Then he asks our boy how he knows this information. At that moment, Granada appears beside the king and says that it was he who told him. The two begin to shout at each other, with the hero asking if he had betrayed him, but Granada warns that he has always been on the king's side. The protagonist says that the reason he failed is because there is no Demon King who does not follow the rules like he does. He displays the Armani sphere, asking whether the human plan would withstand the secret interference of a strong hero. The king says that the item invades the brain and if it senses hostility, explodes the target's head with a gesture. If the orb fails, he dies. The king warns that he will not hesitate, because there are many other useful heroes to use. The hero tries to refuse, insisting that his strength nullifies mental magic and that the orb will disappear upon entering his body. The elf retorts that it is enough for him to want it for the defense to vanish. The hero shouts, calling the elf crazy and shameless. He shouts that he will never give in and that the item will be wasted, but our boy forces his mouth to make him swallow. With brutality, the protagonist orders him to shut up and swallow, shoving the sphere down his throat without any mercy. The hero chokes, his eyes trembling and wide open. The orb goes down his throat with a dry sound, sealing his fate. The elf fears that he will choose death. The Demon King sees the black energy taking over his body and tells him not to worry. The king says that he would not do that, since this hero is quite greedy, but now he is a puppet. The new status confirms, vassal of the Demon King. He is a selfish man who would never sacrifice himself for others. On the throne, Gordon comments that, despite the vassal, the massive debt of 100,000 gold coins restricts his actions. The exchanged energy points yielded only 2,000 coins, a negligible amount compared to what they need. The Demon King smiles, ignoring the financial concern. He says that it is already time to receive a certain message. He refers to the Unison of the Towers, the annual meeting of the Demon Kings that he used to avoid in his past life. He explains that the other Demon Kings, for having survived so long, must have accumulated mountains of treasures. Gordon panics and shouts, realizing that his master plans to exchange energy points for money again. But a notification sound interrupts the outburst. After dealing with heroes, at that moment Gordon begins to understand the master's logic. The invitation to the meeting has arrived. He admits that, following the old pattern, they would never have defeated those heroes. A cunning smile forms on his lips, signaling that he is ready to put everything on the line now. With determination, he calls Gordon and says that it is time to trick his senior Demon Kings. The view reveals the majestic Tower of Lies, rising solitary and imposing in the middle of the Great Lake. He enters the hall of the 13th floor and, seeing everyone already gathered, provokes them by saying that he arrived exactly on time. Berje Deias, the demonic dragon, asks with total mockery if they had so many secrets to talk about without him. Draxon, the impetuous beast king, does not hide his hostility and growls Berge's name with animal fury. Reyna Soldian, the cold monarch of winter, analyzes him with disdain, stating that he is the great current topic. The giant Yugur Belva soon manifests, calling him conceited for having insulted the established patterns. On the other hand, Jason, the mysterious king of lies, opens a wide smile and welcomes him with open arms. Berje mocks their unity and questions the honor of the kings, although he knows it is necessary. Yugger explodes with rage, calling Berje a fool and questioning what he knows about the situation of Arein. The Titan claims to be the only elite there and threatens to kill him, but Berje only smiles and challenges him, telling him to try his luck. Before blood can be spilled, Jason's hands rise into the air, preparing to intervene in the fight. A solitary, sharp clap echoes through the hall, instantly cutting the murderous tension of the environment. Jason smiles and warns, that meeting is for cooperation, so they should not waste everyone's precious time. Berje notices the fury vanish without magic and wonders, astonished what the true power of that man might be. As Yugger sits down, Berje considers whether that is the tower's influence, but decides not to draw conclusions too early. Determined to keep his guard up, he listens as Jason officially begins the meeting, asking for the king's opinions. The silence at the table is broken by Draxon, the Beast King, who steps forward to be the first to speak. With a bloodthirsty aura, the werewolf stares Berje in the eyes and demands to know the whereabouts of Hillen Cargill. Berje stares into the void in absolute silence, with a heavy look lost in his thoughts. He finally opens his mouth, with a serious expression, to reveal the truth about what happened to Hillen Cargill. The attendants are perplexed, with the assistance of the beasts and of lies questioning whether he is really dead. Gordon panics and denies everything, swearing that the target did not even manage to enter their tower. The discussion continues in the reception hall, where everyone questions whether the rumors about the Demon King are real. The truth imposes itself upon them, for the situation unfolds exactly in the way the Demon King predicted. In secret, the order is given to pretend total ignorance, for the plan now is to use him as a useful spy. The assistant reflects with an intense look, admitting that his master was right, but something still bothers him greatly. He explodes with rage, shouting that damned king is a stubborn brat who never listens to anyone around him. But, curiously, he blushes with pleasure as he shouts, feeling a strange and inexplicable satisfaction in insulting him. The attendants find the king strange, while Gordon, resigned, tries to explain the peculiarity of his master. He understands the painful truth, realizing that, deep down, he really just needed a little emotional support. The tension grows in the room and the white-haired leader questions, incredulous, whether he should believe that story. Fury explodes when they learn the reason for the tower's location, a capricious decision that angers everyone in the room. Jason smiles maliciously, noting the imprudence of leaving the tower defenseless against the heroes. He provokes with a sadistic smile, recalling the cruel fate of a king who loses his tower, mentioning the academy. The Demon King, relaxed and confident, responds dismissively that he protects his tower in his own and only way. His gaze narrows in pure irritation, for the arrogant attitude of the King of Lies gets on his nerves. The mood changes when the other decides to back down, laughing at the situation and agreeing not to investigate that matter any further. The giant wolf becomes furious at the disrespect toward the Archduke, but the king simply ignores it, wanting to move on. He thinks that lying is safe because no one can verify it, better to raise suspicions than to be discovered now. He looks at the other demons and reaffirms his focus. He will not forget the main reason, to earn 100,000 in gold. While the kings talk, he notices the hierarchy. The King of Lies must occupy a very high position there. He listens carefully to gather information and find out which demon kings are low on energy now. Suddenly, the Icy Queen turns her face toward him. He becomes confused when he notices that intense gaze. The scene shifts to the balcony of the 13th floor of the Tower of Lies, under a vast and clear blue sky. She approaches and says that there are no secrets. She only wanted to talk to him alone, away from the other kings. With a serious look, she states that she agrees with some of his points. The sudden statement leaves him completely shocked. Sweating cold, he asks if she is serious. He tries to remember if Reyna said things like that in his past life. She asks not to be misunderstood. Unlike him, she does not hate the patterns because she lives through them. She explains that the demon kings need to be flexible, so she preferred to talk to him alone now. When he asks what she thinks of him, he receives an unexpected compliment about his appearance, leaving him very confused. She hands over a personal transmitter for advice, warning him not to insult the standards in front of her. Before leaving, he asks about the King of Lies, which makes her stop walking immediately. She admits she cannot read him, but states that he is better than the other idiots, showing a certain respect. Without saying anything else, the Icy Queen walks back inside the tower, leaving him alone on the balcony. Holding the item, he reflects on Reyna Soldian. He still does not trust her, but sees the alliance as a gain. The scene changes completely, showing the snowy and imposing exterior of the Tower of Berje, far from the meeting. On the first floor, the princess offers freshly baked cookies to Lozier, who is shocked by the surprise. She says that the king bought the ingredients and she used elementals to bake them, proving the convenience of her gift. The princess insists that he try the cookies, and he thanks her emotionally for such a kind gesture. He bites the cookie, determined to lie if it is bad, just to please her and not hurt her feelings. But his eyes widen immediately. The taste is not bad, on the contrary, it is something he has never felt. It is a heavenly experience. The flavor is so divine that he feels his own mana move with the delight. In tears and completely surrendered, he asks what she created, because the taste is something he cannot escape. She smiles and reveals the secret ingredient, spiritual flowers. He is shocked to receive something so rare. It is a strategic gift for the future. She says they will see each other a lot, and he agrees, still somewhat dazed. Curious, she asks if Granada would like some too. He assures her that Granada would love it more than anything. With a shy smile, she asks about the Demon King, wanting to know if he would also approve of the sweets. The scene changes. The Demon King walks through the empty hall, noting that the meeting ended much earlier than usual. Suddenly, Jason offers tea and a conversation, but the king finds the unusual invitation strange. Jason's hands intertwine calmly, indicating that he has a proposal or a secret to reveal. With a cunning smile, he goes straight to the point and claims to know that the king urgently needs human money. The king's eye widens in shock. That comment hit directly on a secret that should not have been known. Furious and tense, he demands to know what that means and how that confidential information leaked to him. He smiles and says that he knows that the youngest Demon King is in need, badly needing human money. The shock of the revelation is immediate, and his eyes reveal total surprise at what he has just heard. He asks what he means by that, but in thought he wants to know right away where the information ended up leaking from. He warns that pretending will not help and reveals that it was Draxon who told everything that he already knows. Without mind games, he proposes a deal, to exchange demonic energy points for human currency. Berje looks at him suspiciously and asks what the true objective behind that suspicious offer is. The other only laughs and states that he is on his side, suggesting that both of them get along well from now on. Already on the first floor of Berje's tower, a mountain of bags of gold appears before his followers. He orders them to remove 100,000 coins from there, but warns that the origin of this money must be hidden. The fear is that if Jason tracks the gold, they will end up becoming mere puppets in the enemy's hands. He decides to act with maximum caution, since it is impossible to predict what the real plans of the Demon King of Lies are. The knights and mages who followed the hero are humiliated for having become servants of a demon lord. He reveals that he transformed the others and identifies Amon, a merchant of the Golden Moon Guild. Hillen realizes that he will be able to pay off his debts and maybe even return to work as a hero one day. Excited by the situation, he accepts the partnership and says that he is eager to work with his partner. The subordinates are in total shock when they see Sir Hillen act in such a friendly way with the enemy. Berje questions the idea of partnership while manifesting a dark and intimidating power as he holds the Orb of Armani. The evil magic invades Hillen's mind directly, causing unbearable pain in his brain. He makes it clear that they are not partners, because now Hillen is only a slave under the command of the master. The other knights celebrate the fall of the leader, laughing when they see that he finally got what he deserved. Surprised by the master and slave relationship, he hears that loyalty does not matter and receives orders to advance. A voice calls him by name and he turns around, finding the princess who has a request to make of him. She extends a purple letter and asks an unusual favor, to deliver that message to her younger sister, Elena. Hillen asks why she supports the Demon King and if Elena really is the 13th princess of her kingdom. She apologizes, says that she does not intend to return and mentions that a hero like him must know the real secret. He reflects on the secret of the kingdom and realizes that her actions make sense in view of the rumors. A few hours pass in the tower of our demon boy. Gordon questions his master and asks if the hero will really follow the orders, despite not being a case of pure distrust. He states that Hillen is not a despicable man who cares only about other people's money. Our boy says that he does not see in the hero that human obsession with gold, but admits that he is also not noble at all. What Hillen most desires at this moment seems to be far from being something noble or heroic. It is not about honor, but rather about a desperate search for fame and popularity among people. Our boy understands and tells Gordon that he wants to stand out and will be the perfect spy if we control him with the Orb of Armani. Gordon finds it impressive how he understands humans and in thought says that he cannot remain still while everything happens. Smiling, our boy says that a hero destroying society from the inside as a vassal of the Demon King would be an incredible sight. Gordon fully agrees with the master and admits that seeing a hero bring the world down would be something spectacular. Suddenly, knocks on the door interrupt the very serious conversation that was happening in that room. The girl appears offering cookies and the heavy atmosphere of the room changes completely with her visit. He warns that she is too bold and threatens to imprison her if the sweets are not really good. Upon taking the first bite, he begins to reflect on how surprising human sweets are. He is in total shock at the flavor, feeling something he never expected to come from a human. The young woman vibrates with joy when she sees that she achieved the exact reaction she so desired at that moment. Taken by an intense sensation, he grips his throne with absolute strength until it breaks. Panting and sweating, he admits with a smile that that was not bad at all for a simple human. She can hardly believe what she sees and wonders how he was able to endure such pressure. He asks if she used spiritual flowers and she admits brightly, happy that he noticed the flavor right away. He notices that she returned the reward and realizes that there is something specific that she wants in exchange. With a mischievous laugh, she confirms her intentions, leaving him confused about what will come next. Hillen's band finishes descending the mountain safely, under the protection of the great warrior Krutu. Upon arriving in Holton Walk, they depart for the kingdom of Hildren using a teleportation circle. Changing to Granada, the guild's facade seems calm, but the atmosphere inside is very heavy. In the Scarlet Hawk barracks, discipline is re-established with violence against the cowards of the group. Granada asks angrily if they really fled in the blizzard and left their captain behind alone. An injured mercenary begs for forgiveness, crying copiously while trying to explain what happened. He says that the Ergest Mountains are a place where even heroes die and that they only wanted to leave there alive. Granada explodes in fury upon learning that he was abandoned by his men during the deadly blizzard. The captain is interrupted by something unexpected and quickly turns his face to see who is approaching. A warrior in armor enters the place and introduces herself as Kid, a heroine in search of a chance. She explains that she was late due to personal circumstances, but begs to join the journey. He is surprised to learn that the heroine even paid the tavern bills while he was away. Granada finally loses patience and begins to strike his own cowardly subordinates. He warns Kid that the journey is over, since Hillen and the main group have already left Holton Walk. Curious, she asks for details about his failure, and he agrees to tell only what he was allowed to. The sun begins to set over the city, while the two settle in for a long and revealing conversation. Kid is in total shock to learn that the Demon King's tower is not on top of the mountain as she thought. Kid states that she has no more reasons to stay there and leaves gold coins as a form of gratitude. She leaves the tavern in silence, leaving the payment behind on the old wooden table. They mock the newcomer for being naive, but the captain orders that no one touch that gold left behind. While she walks alone down the deserted street, shadowy figures appear right behind her, watching her steps. Observing from afar, Sir Granada notices that 3 men in armor are following the heroine in the city. Sir Granada watches the movement at the tavern with a serious and thoughtful look about everything he discovered. The city seems calm when seen from above, but dangerous secrets are about to be revealed in the shadows. Knights surround Kid and demand her return to her fiancé, but she shouts that she wishes to live as a heroine. Granada watches and realizes that their steps are far too silent, discovering that she is a princess. He decides not to get involved, believing that the affairs of the kingdom must be resolved by the kingdom itself. A sharp blade suddenly appears and stops very close to his neck, causing a terrible fright. The knight demands to know who he is, why he was spying, and questions the use of that suspicious magic. He panics when he remembers that the tool is from the Demon King and fears being exposed as one of his vassals. Threateningly, the soldier asks if he is a spy from another kingdom and states that he cannot let him live. Breaking out in a cold sweat, he realizes that he got himself into enormous trouble and mentally begs for divine help. Suddenly, a massive explosion hits the place and everyone is frightened when they see someone fleeing through the flames. An assassin alert is triggered and the guards order that he not escape while Granada runs for his life. The confusion is total and the knights ask that the princess retreat immediately to a safe place. He hesitates to use his elf powers so as not to be discovered, but fears that he will not be able to escape without them. Protecting Her Highness, the royal soldiers draw their weapons and promise that they will resolve that whole situation. With no way out, he decides that he needs to use his elf powers, even if that reveals his real identity. A mysterious voice echoes in the air, questioning whether that small delay happened because of this reason. Suddenly, an overwhelming purple energy falls from the sky, leaving Granada in a state of absolute confusion. The Demon King appears in all his glory and asks if he was really wasting time with nonsense. Granada complains about the situation, but the master says that his injuries are light and will soon heal on their own. The knights panic at the Demon King and swear to protect the princess with their own lives. The Demon King says that he did not know that she was a princess, but the soldiers do not believe him and say that he is lying. Even Granada questions his master's presence in that place, wanting to know the real reason for his appearance. He states that he is only resolving a matter and by coincidence they met, but no one swallows that cheap excuse. Going back to a few hours earlier, the girl stared at the Demon King, who asked what she really wanted by making those cookies. She states that she needs seneal powder and confirms that this item serves to seal spiritual pacts. Hundreds of years ago, an elf named Seneal deserted her land to join a human kingdom. The king ordered a supplement for spiritual mutual pacts, and it was at that moment that the so-called senile powder appeared. He says that her talent makes the powder useless, but she reminds him that in the tower mana is almost non-existent. He tells her to stop pretending and asks if she plans a contract with a high-level spirit. He mentally concludes that he was right all along about the real intentions that the young woman was hiding. In the past, Ernan Hildren made a rare contract with a high-level spirit at only 27 years old. She wants to repeat the feat 7 years earlier than expected, and he wonders if the tower really changed her. While taking a sweet, he states that he does not care, as long as this increases the power of his tower. He thanks her for the meal and warns that, because he has his own reasons, he wants to end everything once and for all. Keed is paralyzed while she sees the Demon King charging an energy attack right before her eyes. A massive explosion of dark power happens in the middle of the city, destroying several houses and buildings. The Demon King observes the destruction calmly, but soon lets out a sound of surprise when he notices something unexpected. Keed awakens her heroic aura and shines intensely, proving that even a princess is a born heroine. With her sword in hand, she states that her place is not in the palace, but rather fighting to annihilate demons. On the battlefield, she uses the supreme sword technique known as the Crescent Moon Slash. This strike releases a deadly aura capable of annihilating enemies, being passed on only to the best swordsman. For being a worthless princess, she was sold to a foreign king who wished to recover his youth. Feeling the injustice, she rebelled at being forced to marry an old pervert against her will. Then, she trained without stopping to be recognized as a powerful heroine and never just as a princess. She believes that, if she defeats the Demon King in that place, she will finally be recognized as a true heroine. By winning, she would be free from her father's orders and could follow her own path away from the kingdom. With fury in her eyes, she shouts that she will decide for herself whom she will marry from now on. However, the master extends his dark hand and begins to break all that powerful aura with extreme ease. He smiles and admits that the aura of her sword is not bad at all, while the fragments shine around him. In shock, she watches her final strike be nullified and realizes that her strength was not enough. The enemy hovers in the air and questions whether a true heroine would die from such a simple attack. Breaking out in a cold sweat, she finally understands the difference in power. That is a true Demon King. With a sadistic smile, he states that a princess heroine will be useful in many different ways. Despair takes over her eyes as she begs him to stop, sensing the danger. Desperate screams echo through the surroundings, warning that Her Highness's life is in great danger. A massive explosion of dark energy consumes the place, leaving only destruction in its path. Knights lie fallen on the ground and the population tries to understand what happened while demonic energy still lingers in the air. Chaos settles over the city and the people cry out for healing mages to help the fallen guards. The terrible news spreads. The Demon King was in that place and took the princess into the darkness. Amid black flames and smoke, the survivors try to understand the origin of such destruction. Far from there, the imposing Tower of Berje rises among the frozen mountains as a new destination. The wounded princess is thrown onto the cold floor of an underground prison inside our boy's tower. Senil watches her with curiosity, while the master reveals that she is the 9th imperial princess. The master orders her to take care of Keed, foreseeing that she will be useful if trained in the right way. The master explains that, to obtain demonic energy points, he needs to kidnap nobility periodically. He panics when he realizes that he has just revealed confidential information to a mere prisoner. Trying to recover his composure, he decides to seek senile powder and orders the princess to simply cooperate. Meanwhile, the news about the kidnapping of the 9th imperial princess spreads like fire across the entire continent. At the guild headquarters, the hero Hillen Cargill is questioned about whether every word of his testimony is truly real. With his head down, Hillen admits that he failed to find the tower and takes full responsibility for the mistake. The guild comforts him, stating that punishing heroes for failures would prevent new warriors from arising. The Empire demands a new journey, since the 9th princess was taken by the Demon King of the Ergest Mountains. Hillen suggests that, before a new attack, a reconnaissance unit should locate the hidden tower. He argues that the enemy only hid in a secret tower because he does not fully trust his own strength. The leaders agree that a strong Demon King would have no reason to hide in a tower. They conclude that the enemy must be an impotent coward and therefore does not represent a threat. Silence hangs in the room as the council evaluates the strategic weakness of the new Demon King. The final decision is to postpone the hero's journey until the exact location of the tower is confirmed. Hillen accepts the orders promptly, aware that the next step requires caution and precision. Hillen walks toward the exit thoughtfully, questioning whether the Demon King's plan was to use his authority to buy time. Gordon reports that the mission was accomplished and the master orders that they continue to watch Hillen closely. The master admits that having Hillen as his vassal was the right choice, thus avoiding a direct attack from the guild. With his informants acting outside the tower, the Demon King manages to delay the journey of any other hero. He accumulates energy points and plans to use the Orb of Armani to turn the princess into a warrior. While the dwarf works on renovating the tower, Kruta leads the troops to expand the influence of the new Demon King. No hero will dare attack the tower when Princess Ernan Hildren masters a high-level spirit. it. He says that only after strengthening his base will he be able to focus on the outside world and begin his revenge. Our boy also says that his fury will be directed against the cursed heroes who took his life. To consolidate this master plan, his next urgent step is to obtain the rare senile powder. The master arrives in Amor, the Magitech city, a place filled with extremely powerful heroes and mages. He knows that obtaining senile powder without being discovered will be a difficult and very risky task. In an isolated area of the magic market, he finds the modest shop called Jettison's World of Wonders. The shopkeeper reads the news about the kidnapping of the princess and criticizes the guild for the failure in security. The sound of the doorbell announces the entry of a new customer, interrupting the old man's lamentations. The shop owner receives him with a forced smile, confirming that he has the rare senile powder in stock. The kingdom of Aachen is the world center of magical engineering, where the greatest mages and heroes gather. To avoid risks, Berje chose an empty and isolated shop, hiding his demonic energy. The shopkeeper tries to push a special offer, but the master distrusts the price and demands silence. When examining the flask, he questions the purple color of the product, since the original powder should be green. The merchant enthusiastically claims that this is a completely new type of senile powder. He whispers that the mage's tower created the item in secret and that it is extremely rare. The shopkeeper thinks about how to extort the customer, believing that he is a desperate noble. Annoyed by the obvious attempt at a scam, the master considers whether he should simply kill him. The doorbell rings again, indicating that someone else has just entered that place. New customers arrive at the humble shop, questioning whether it was really necessary to visit such a simple place. Upon hearing the voices of the newcomers, the master is shocked to immediately recognize who they are. The visitors express fury toward a certain loggia, complaining about having to search in such poor places. Ignoring the master's presence, the warriors begin to question the shopkeeper about the whereabouts of their target. He identifies Louise Werft by her attitude, grateful for not being recognized due to his magical disguise. The merchant claims to have a rare illness. He only recovers his memory if he manages to sell his items first. Louise loses her patience and draws a dagger, while the old man shouts that murders are forbidden there. Even under threat of death, the shopkeeper insists that she buy something before receiving the answers. He smiles nervously and admits that he will only answer if she buys something, fearing that he will soon be stabbed. Confused by such audacity, Louise questions the old man's sanity under the attentive gaze of Master Berje. Louise bursts into laughter at the old man's audacity and decides to give him a chance to show his merchandise. The swindler now tries to sell the same item for 3 gold coins, changing the name to Artshaw powder. Louise pays the abusive price and asks if a dwarf named Lozier has visited the city recently. The shopkeeper points to a famous blacksmith workshop where she will certainly find clues about her target. As she leaves the shop, the warrior bumps into the disguised master and apologizes without suspecting anything at all. Louise walks away from the shop with heavy steps, having no idea that the Demon King had been nearby the whole time. Berje praises the shopkeeper's boldness for having sold trash for 3 gold to such a dangerous warrior. The insatiable old man now tries to charge 10 coins to teach his selling secrets to Master Berje. Impressed by the swindler's talent, the master suggests that he seek the Golden Moon Commercial Guild. The shopkeeper refuses the offer with disdain, claiming that his future is too bright for a bankrupt guild and asks why he should go there. The master answers the question of why he must go, revealing that the person the shopkeeper has just deceived was none other than Louise Werft, the dangerous warrior known as the Mad Dog of Werft. The swindler turns pale with fear upon realizing that he deceived one of the deadliest people in the entire kingdom. Berje offers him a position in the Golden Moon Guild and threatens to bring Louise back if he refuses the deal. Desperate and with no way out, the shopkeeper begs for mercy and accepts the proposal to save his own skin. The shopkeeper changes his expression and reveals that he was only acting, challenging the authority of Master Berje. He angrily shouts for Berje to leave, doubting that the master has the power to bring the princess back. Berje merely agrees and leaves the premises, maintaining the cold posture of someone who has already planned the next move. Suddenly, the door bursts open and the terrifying silhouette of Louise appears amid a very dangerous aura. The shopkeeper turns pale with fear when he notices that the legendary Louise Werft is indeed there to collect the debt. Berje calmly leaves the humble shop, leaving behind a trembling and desperate merchant. When analyzing the green powder, he notices that the con artist handed over the real item only out of fear of imminent death. Louise spots him in the street and shouts for him to wait, surprised to meet the stranger again so soon. She thanks him for the help, saying that she managed to get her refund after confronting the owner of that shop. In fury, she laments the diplomatic laws that prevented her from simply ripping out his heart. She is still as bad-tempered as ever, Berje thought as he observed the warrior's furious reaction. Upon hearing the word heart, Berje suddenly recalls an encounter he had months earlier in the forest. Berje asks if they are looking for Lozier, and Louise, desperate, demands to know the exact location of the blacksmith. He shows a necklace and the dwarf is perplexed to notice that it is a rare piece made by Lozier many years ago. Berje explains that he helped Lozier in the Ormuz Cottonmouth Forest and receive the object as proof of deep gratitude. Louise wants to thank the master with 5 days of drinking, but he only wants her to restrain herself for now. Berje receives the badge of the Dwarven Kingdom, a rare item to obtain elite equipment in the future. Louise decides to ask her father for reinforcements to ensure that the blacksmith Lozier does not escape the city. With a manic look, she swears that she will not let Lozier escape, focusing all her fury on the dwarf target. Berje reflects on how he lost track of time trying to stop the hero's journey after returning. Berje recalls that, in the past, Draxon obtained immense power by absorbing the heart of a rare beast. He knows that facing Louise now would be risky, since his current power would result in a deadly draw. To guarantee his survival and revenge, the master concludes that he needs to evolve his abilities soon. The plan is to send Louise to the Ormouth Forest, where the mysterious beast tower is located. Known as the Mad Dog, our boy wants to use Louise Werft for combat, without her imagining that she is being used. He also wants to use Draxon Doldorf, the Beast Demon King, so that the two face each other in a bloody duel. Master Berje remembers the shining heart of the beast and swears that that immense power will soon be his alone. Thanks to the fusion with the Mana Ghost, the tower has just gained 2 extremely useful new functions. With remote use and active item transfer, the Demon King will have total control even from far away. Berje announces that he will leave the tower under Gordon's care while he goes to resolve a problem. The master sends 10 units of high-level senile powder to Princess Ernan. Ernan is surprised by the quality of the item and receives the warning to use the rare material carefully. Meanwhile, Princess Keed remains imprisoned on the 4th floor, under the condition of behaving well. Granada begins sword training with Keed, who swears to make him regret having trained her. The Demon King spends 10,000 points to install the Hell Forge and reinforce the 1st floor of the tower. Lozier is shocked by the new forge technology, admiring the cooler that looks like a living being. With shining eyes, the dwarf swears loyalty and promises to craft incredible items for the Demon King. Berje makes remote contact to learn about the progress of the orc tribes in the frozen mountains. The orc army has doubled in size and is now capable of hunting any monster in the Ergest region. Satisfied, the master orders that the tower be well managed while he settles his affairs outside. The master walks through the city and celebrates the function of managing the tower remotely, which is very practical. Hillen Cargill makes contact via hologram. The master answers him, impressed by the exact moment of the call. The Golden Moon Guild is dominated and comes to be managed by Amon, by the Black Mages, and Elite Knights. One of the 10 stars guarantees his son's spot in the guild, hearing that he did a good job on the mission. The master decides that the next step is to send an urgent message to Granada about his new plans. He orders that the guild finance the purchase of all elf slaves on the continent right now. Jettison, the swindler who tricked Louise Werft, will be sent to work and be very useful in the guild. With the tracked information, the master threatens to send an assassin if the man does not appear within a month. The swindler trembles in fear and cries desperately upon realizing that his life is by a thread in the master's hands. The master begins to leave the totally messy room. He walks among the debris of the place, while the sound of his footsteps echoes through the silent environment, leaving the swindler relieved. Granada is shocked upon hearing that the master intends to buy all the enslaved elves of the world. In the training field of Holton, Granada accepts the mission and promises to gather his people as soon as possible. He feels relieved to save the elves, but fears delivering them directly into the hands of the Demon King. Granada suspects that the Demon King wants to use the elves as spies, just as he did with him himself. The soldiers question the elven fencing training ordered by the old fossil of hundreds of years. Soldiers suggest deserting while the captain is distracted, promising to follow the former vice-captain. Granada hesitates in anguish, while in the background his men plan a silent escape from the training. He reflects that any fate is better than suffering and dying forever as human slaves. Granada concludes that serving the Demon King is much better than being a slave to humans. The soldiers who were planning to flee are in total shock when they are discovered by their captain. Granada uses magical vines to bind the traitors, who beg desperately for forgiveness. When questioned by Hillen, Granada hides the confusion and pretends that nothing wrong occurred. The master now sets off on a new journey in search of a treasure in a dense jungle region. The kingdom of Ormouth emerges in the midst of the dense jungle, revealing an imposing ancient stone pyramid. Louise Werft appears irritated and exhausted while she searches the humid and dangerous region of the tropical forest. The princess receives orders to withdraw her troops, but she refuses to leave without finding her hated target. With a determined look, Princess Louise states that there is only one place left for them to go. Before everyone appears the Beast Mountain, a dark place where the knights fear to enter and venture. A dwarf warns that the territory of the Beast Demon King is dangerous, but the princess shows no fear. Louise states that messing with the dwarf royalty would start a war against all the nations of the world. She recalls that in the past a demon king was subdued after messing with a royal dwarf prince. With fury, the princess orders the immediate advance and threatens to behead anyone who dares to disobey her. An imposing tower appears in the jungle while a warning cry announces a big problem. An urgent report warns that Princess Louise Werft is going to Beast Mountain, so Loibinho keeps wondering why this crazy woman is going there. there. The Demon King fears that Louise has discovered the heart of the summoning beast and will try to steal it. Pure mana energy sleeps beneath the magma. This power will guarantee the most powerful force of all. He orders that the princess be stopped, but strictly forbids that she be killed or wounded. The servant warns that it will be very difficult to carry out the order without injuring the princess. The warrior faces Princess Louise and questions whether she really wishes to die in that place. He warns that entry into the territory of the Demon King is forbidden and that the palace has already warned her. Prince Max Ormeth laughs, saying that she runs the risk of being killed by the demon tribe. Louise orders him to get out of the way, for she will not return without finding Losier once and for all. Max Ormeth smiles maliciously and states that dwarves are really very stupid beings. Max explains that the Jespine Kingdom profited greatly by selling supplies in the war of 2 centuries ago. He says that Louise's death will bring profits to the Kingdom of Ormeth, just as happened in the Old Empire. Princess Louise Werft becomes furious at the betrayal and stares at the villain with a look full of pure hatred. Max Ormeth orders the immediate massacre to guarantee the profits of the war and attacks with his royal spear. The troops advance against the princess under the war cry for the prosperity of the Kingdom of Ormeth. Louise brandishes her axe with fury and challenges the soldiers of Ormeth, calling them cowardly monkeys. The Beast Demon King panics upon learning that the dwarves run the risk of being massacred. He realizes Ormeth is trapped to blame him and fears a new world war like the one centuries ago. The Master orders the immediate dispatch of monsters to save Princess Louise in any way. The bloody battle begins in the jungle, with soldiers being cut down as chaos spreads through the place. The warriors of Ormeth attack with ferocity, spilling the blood of the dwarf knights in the humid jungle. The dwarf guards form a solid shield barrier to protect the princess from fatal attacks. A soldier warns that the terrain favors the enemy and begs the princess to flee while there is time. Furious, Louise shouts that she herself will finish everyone, but her men try to restrain her impulse. Louise observes through a gap in the shields, preparing her next move against the traitors of Ormeth. Prince Max Ormeth mocks the dwarf defense and promises to end everything with a single fatal blow. Then a powerful energy suddenly arises, leaving Prince Max Ormeth completely in shock. Max feels the demonic aura and fears that the servants of the Beast Demon King have already arrived. The Master emerges from the shadows and comments on how human interests are indeed very complicated. Max and Louise are paralyzed when they notice that that presence does not belong to a simple beast demon. Using his magical mask, the Master condemns the Prince of Ormeth to immediate death on the spot. And that's it for today, guys. If you made it this far and enjoyed the content, please leave a like. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And if you want the continuation, let me know in the comments so I can bring it to you faster. See you next time, guys.